It's time for Windows Weekly. Paul Thurrott is in Mexico City. Richard Campbell is in Melbourne, Australia. Yet we gather together in the amazing miracle of modern technology to do a Windows Weekly show. We're going to talk about just the crazy answer from Microsoft about insider preview channels. Apparently, they're not supposed to be in any particular order anymore. Microsoft says it's going to defend EU companies against the U.S. government. Late earnings come in, and we'll talk about those. Plus, a brand new game for Xbox, Towerborn. All that and more coming up next. Plus a great whiskey on Windows Weekly.
Podcasts you love.
From people you trust.
This is Twit.
This is Windows Weekly with Paul Thurrott and Richard Campbell, episode 930, recorded Wednesday, April 30th, 2025. Flocculation and Saponification. It's time for Windows Weekly, the show where we cover the latest news from Microsoft. Ladies and gentlemen, I introduce my compatriots on this show. Actually, they're the actual hosts. Mr. Paul Thurrott, Thurrott.com. Hello, Paulie. He's in Mexico City. And all the way from Melbourne, it's Richard Campbell of Run His Radio. And it's 3 a.m. Richard, my deepest apologies. It's getting early. It's getting
we've had
worse.
time to set up. It's 4 a.m. now, so we're making progress.
Will New Zealand be better or worse?
Better.
Okay.
Better in every way, Leo. Every way. No,
I'm
I'm kidding.
I had a really great whiskey adventure this week. You guys are going to hear all about, which would be tough to duplicate almost anywhere else. So Melbourne's been very good to me.
This was this had to have been still PDC. We were talking to this group of guys. It might have been the same PDC where we jumped behind on the pillows behind Tom Warren that a million years ago.
As you do.
The world famous. Yes.
Talking to this group of guys. They're from Australia, New Zealand, whatever. And we're just, as guys do, just ripping on each other. And some guy goes, he's like, admit it, you can't tell our accents apart. And I was like, New Zealand, Australia, New Zealand. They were like, holy crap. And
I'm totally like, can.
I guess.
They know that.
I just guessed. I have no
idea. But she guessed with certainty, and that's what it takes.
That's all that matters.
Like any middle-aged white guy.
Absolutely.
I know. Okay.
It was a good one.
Shall we play a game?
Yeah.
Shall we talk about Windows? You have a interesting point you made in the notes today.
If you say so. I guess we'll find out. I don't know. So we've been talking a lot about Dave Plummer lately, and that's not by design. I just he had come up with that Longhorn video thing, and I was like, I love this guy. He didn't really add anything here. But he just did a video fairly recently talking about Windows 11, interestingly. So, of course, I perk up to this. And, what his argument basically comes down to is that in switching over to free operating system upgrades, which was technically Windows 10 was the first big one, but it really, in the wake of Windows 8 and wanting to get everyone updated, there, obviously, and get past that, Apple had made Mac OS upgrades free at that point. Mobile OS upgrades are free. They're like, all right, we have to do this because no one's upgrading, right? And Windows had a well-deserved reputation for those upgrades being unreliable and, problematic. Mainstream users would never upgrade, Windows. So they're like, all right, we're going to try to get everyone on the same version. Windows as a service, yada, yada, yada.
Yeah, but sysadmins were big on we wait for Service Pack 1, right?
Yeah, exactly. And, they've been changing the rules ever since. I mean, on upgrades and how that stuff works. And the upgrades are still free. I don't mean that. But, for businesses, depending on the type of arrangement, license you have, whatever, you can skip versions and things like that. They get kind of mealy-mouthed about what things are called. It's like Windows 10 actually probably had 9 product versions in the course of its life or something, which were major revs of Windows or version upgrades, whatever. But, he gets to that point where it's, we've all heard the adage, if you don't pay for the product, then you are the product. Mm-hmm. And I was like, because it's really easy to fall into that argument, right? It sounds right. And this caused me to go back and look at some stuff because, one of those things that I've kind of done a lot over the years is get outraged over things that I believe to be important and then try to step back from the ones that are either completely made up or maybe just exaggerated and say, guys, there are more serious problems in the world than whatever the faux outrage thing you've got going on right now is. So, for example, the key complaint against Windows 11 in this area is the forced telemetry, which, on the surface of things is, I could see, I understand it. Like I understand, I would like Windows to have the switch, and it could be hoops you have to jump through. It doesn't have to be obvious, where you could just say, no, I'm not doing this.
Well, I guess the question is the kind of telemetry, like application crashes, misconfiguration, so forth. That telemetry I'm less concerned about than my own personal digital 100%.
And that's the thing I went back and looked up because Microsoft, as it turns out, has a privacy policy, and it very explicitly states what they are sending back to Microsoft about your computer. Mm-hmm. It's anonymous. It's all about reliability issues. And what they're trying to do is find patterns so that, maybe you have a problem because you have some weird configuration. But if they see that same problem across millions of computers, that elevates it up to the top of the stack. We got to fix that thing quick because it's clearly a problem, Yeah. So my personal stance on this is what you just said. In fact, I wrote this when this would have been Windows 10, not 11, when this first came out, was, look, if I had the option to turn off all telemetry, I wouldn't. I'd just leave it alone. I want to contribute in that small way to the overall reliability of Windows. I think most people probably do. All I'm saying,
and most consumers, because most sysadmins block all the machines traveling across the firewall.
Yes, and by the way, that issue just came up fairly recently because that's a problem, right? Yep. You've got these corporate standard configurations being rolled out to hundreds or thousands of people. Yeah. They could be having an endemic problem. And there needs
they tend to use different hardware than the average consumer too. So you can have whole classes of machine that are all behind the firewall.
That are just not being reported.
No telemetry.
So by the way, that is an issue, but it's kind of the issue at the other end of the spectrum, I guess. But look, there is advertising in Windows. I coined that slippery slope phrase with Windows 8 where I said, the ads are in apps. They're in modern apps only. They're way at the end of the app. Remember, they used to have these giant panoramic experiences. Like, there weren't ads up front, but I was like, slippery slope, you don't put ads in Windows to put in less ads in the next version of Windows. You're going to put more ads in, and those ads are going to come front and center. They're going to come out of the apps, and that's exactly what happened, right?
Yeah, without a doubt. And again, the thing the sysadmins get is they get bare metal enterprise versions of Windows 11 or Windows 10 that don't have a lot of that stuff.
Yep. Yeah. I mean, this is a weird coincidence, but right before before we started recording, but we were here and we were trying to figure out video, audio stuff. Mm-hmm. I was doing whatever I was doing in Notion, and I noticed in the sidebar of Notion, and it's gone now, but there was a little graphical pop-up for Notion Mail, a little ad.
Got it too.
Yep.
I got a full screen pop-up that blocked everything until I dismissed.
Before you do anything important to you, let me tell you about me.
Let me sell you something.
This is right.
It's still there now on the right now.
Depending on your personality, depending on all kinds of things. I don't know. Leo, for example, I know said he pays for Notion. So if I was
$200 a year, buddy.
Yeah. So if I was paying for Notion, that would bother me a lot. Right. Yeah. I don't pay for Notion. I've made the case that I don't understand why I'm not paying for Notion. But there are these products that exist and they'll change. I get this. The world changes and things, whatever. But for now, Notion is on that very short list of products I do not pay for that are not certified, that give me way more. This is like here in Mexico City, especially, but anywhere in the world, really. You'll go to like a little dive bar looking thing, and they have the best food in the world.
Yeah.
And I always make the same comment, which is this is better than it needs to be. People who come in here and drink cocktails or beers or whatever would be okay with lesser quality. It doesn't
have
food.
to be the best in the world.
It doesn't have to be a Michelin class, but it often is. Like, it's kind of strange. And if you apply that thinking to like software services, whatever, the list is very short. Notion is on that list. Substack is to me. And I know there are other issues with Substack, but Substack is this publishing platform that you don't pay a cent for. And If you don't make any money, they don't make any money, whatever, life goes on. But if you make money, yeah, they make some money. They're hosting your stuff. They don't charge you for anything. And to me, that's very, very good. And that might be the end of my list. I'm not really sure, but Windows is one of those things where obviously it's been shifting. And with Windows 10, especially, and now Windows 11, it's been trending over toward that. You're starting to bug me more than you're worth to me kind of problem, but not yet. And anyway, but the point is, are you the product, right? Like we all know, we use Google Maps, they're tracking us. We use Google Search, they're tracking us, right? We use Google Chrome, they're tracking us. People seem to be okay with that. Most people, because most people use those things. So, okay. But we understand it, or we sort of understand it. I don't think we understand it well enough, but this notion of like, you are the product, right? It's such a pithy, short little phrase. It's perfect. I don't think you are the product in Windows. I got to be honest. Notion has a right, is a strong term, but a right in a way to advertise to us, right? We have these other things we think you might like, and it would help us, obviously. Microsoft does some of that in Windows with things like, Microsoft 365. If you don't already subscribe, they'll pop up stuff during setup and elsewhere. OneDrive, they want to force that usage to use the cloud and then have to pay for an upgrade or whatever. Edge is maybe the grossest one, where they push you to Edge, even when you very explicitly say, yeah, I actually want to use this other browser. But I don't know. I don't feel like Windows is fully on the dark side yet. I don't know. And the big argument there, though, is the telemetry one. And Richard hit it right up front because he's correct. It's anonymous, reliability related data. We should all want to send that to Microsoft. If we use this product, we should want it to be as good as it can be. It's not about them seeing what underwear I'm buying or what,
We should all want to send that to Microsoft.
Shouldn't we?
Everybody?
No, I mean,
come on.
Shouldn't we? I mean, no, it just is. Don't you want the community you're part of to be as good as it can be?
As long as you trust Microsoft to do what they say they're doing in their privacy policy.
Yeah, that's really where it falls. If you literally think that they're lying, that they have put up this, what I would call a legally binding document that could be used against them in court if you can prove otherwise. If you literally think this company is that evil that they outright lie, you should not be using Windows
at all.
At all. So, I mean, and that's a decision you can make. Some people do make that, right? That's fine. I think it's a little extreme. Microsoft has all kinds of problems. I don't think there's I've never seen evidence of that. I've seen all kinds of crap, but
I think they're no worse. And this is the thing I think Apple gets a free pass on because their marketing is, we're the privacy company. But I think all the companies are basically the same.
Oh, right? What's actually worse is when you promote yourself like Apple does, and you say things like, "Hey, by the way, when Facebook starts up or Google starts up, you get a little dialogue and says, hey, they want to track you. Do you want to stop that?" And you're like, yes, I do. Yeah. You know where you don't get that little dialogue? In any Apple app.
Right.
So Apple is tracking you. Apple is following you around the App Store. Apple is showing you ads in the App Store. Apple is actually doing almost everything that these companies we all hate so much do, but they have really good marketing. It doesn't mean they're not doing some things right. I respect a lot of the stuff they do, actually. I mean, this private compute cloud thing they're talking about sounds good. I mean,
what's the proof that Apple is at least to some degree protecting your privacy? Mm-hmm. Their AI sucks.
That might be the best proof.
They don't want it to suck.
They'll get there. They will. Apple, you know what the real problem with Apple Intelligence is it was the anti-Apple way to approach anything. What Apple usually does is they sit back and they watch and they look and they see what people are doing and what's popular. And they're like, okay, how can we do this? Can we do this in a unique way? Can we do this in a way that is seamless and awesome and better in something? And then when they get there, and it takes years, they nail it. They usually nail it. Not 100%, but there's so many examples of this. This time they were like, and they just regurgitated it out.
They couldn't afford to miss the wave.
Yep.
Right.
Yep. And you're looking at it now, a couple of years later, I guess. Why couldn't they have waited? They should have waited. I don't think anyone bought a new iPhone to get Apple Intelligence. If you did, you're stupid.
You're annoying.
Sorry. I mean,
the next WWDC is just not that far away.
I can tell you that your old iPhone is going to run ChatGPT, the thing you actually want, just as well as your new iPhone. So I don't know. Anyway, Apple Intelligence is a good example of what is ultimately enshrification in the sense that it's their corporate policy driving the agenda, even though it's not necessarily what people want, their own customers want. In the past, you could argue with most things Apple did that it was in support of that thing. That when you can align with a company that is selling you a product, service, whatever it is, that's a good relationship. Like it's, and I think most Apple fans especially feel that they have a very healthy and good relationship with Apple. And I feel like when things like that happen, they're like, they're human. That's weird. But also they can make mistakes, and that's kind of unusual.
It's one of the very few baubles in confidence we've seen out of Apple in a long time.
Trust is tough because trust takes a long time to build up. If you go, I do this all the time because I'm stupid, but like go back and watch an old video of Steve Jobs defending himself at one of the first WWDCs that after he came back, and people are just dumping on him. And he's like, yeah, I deserve this. I'm terrible. But to crawl out of that hole to get to where they are now required many years. And then you have one little screw up and it all goes rewinding back for some people, I don't think that's what's going to happen at Apple, but anyway, the point of all this is what it always is, really. There's a lot of problems out there in the world, and we should focus on those.
There are more.
If you're still sitting here fuming over telemetry in Windows 11, man, you got to get your priorities straight. This is not a problem. That's my take.
Thank you.
Okay.
Anyway, I don't see it in your notes, so I'm going to just broach the subject.
I hope we do this every week because we're going to call this segment
what
Leo points out Paul's flaws.
No, it's just that we spent a long time yesterday on Security Now talking about the fact that the last Windows update put an empty folder in your root directory called Inetpub.
Yeah.
And Microsoft said, it's necessary, don't delete it.
Well,
really?
I think, So Inetpub obviously is the
it's
IIS
my
folder.
IIS.
It's not there normally unless you install this component, right? So this is something I've not even looked at, but I'm going to do it.
So Microsoft's story on this is we need it. It's a security part of a security update. It has to be there. If you
does it have to be visible?
Yeah, it's visible. Well,
no, but does it have to be?
I don't know if it has to be visible. That's a good question. I temporarily hit it and then I said, no, never mind. I'm not going to do that. If you delete it, the only way to bring it back is to install IIS and then delete it. Then, install and uninstall IIS. If you look at the permission, so it was installed when I did the update, and that's Microsoft says that's part of the update.
No, everyone should be seeing this now. If you have a Windows 11 PC, you will have this folder.
Yeah, and it is a system folder. It is owned by the system, so you can't just delete it and recreate it yourself. You actually have to actually reinstall IIS. Microsoft is not completely clear on why it has to be there, but they say they are clear. It has to be there.
So I feel like I think it being visible was the mistake.
Yeah, I agree. But maybe it has to be visible. We don't know why it's what.
No, but this has never happened before. I mean, this is very strange, right? This is a very strange problem. So to install IIS, I should.
You have to. I don't know if you could do it in home. You can do it on Pro. You have to go to the additional Windows.
Windows features. Yeah, no, I know how you do it. What I'm saying is, like, I wonder if there is a internet. If I go into settings, you can't actually find. Well, let me try. I just want to try different things to see if it ever comes up anywhere. Internet information. Yeah, it doesn't come up in search. So you have to know to do this. You have to know to go to Windows features, which you have to basically search for to find. And then you have to go check the boxes.
But furthermore, you have to know not to delete it.
Well, that's the trick. So as you're saying,
Microsoft didn't say, hey, by the way, we're going to create an empty folder in your root directory. Please don't delete it.
Right. Why would they say that? But
why create it until you need it to do actually the update?
Let me tell you who has no idea this happened. My wife. And the reason I mention that is because my wife is that kind of normal mainstream user who doesn't understand file systems or look at file systems. Yeah. The fact that this has come up at all says a lot about us. We're the ones who are like, oh my God, they added a folder to my file system. You're like, what? How did you what caused you to even notice that?
Why were you looking there?
That is bizarre, in a way, right? And then you find out what it's about. And it was part of a security update, like Leo said. And that leads me to my question. That is still my question. It's like, okay, why is it visible? Just if you had kept that thing hidden, there's a 90-something% chance we wouldn't be talking about this, right? Like no one would have heard about this.
Right.
But the 10% would go, why'd they put a hidden folder on?
Yeah, it's even worse, isn't it?
What are they hiding?
And by the way, I mean, we already know they're lying about telemetry. I mean, what will they do next?
Yeah.
It is a little bit, let's face it, it's a kind of kludgy way to do a security update. I mean, it's unclear.
It is not kind of anything. That's an incredibly kludgy way. This is the opposite of, one of the first, and maybe the only time I was ever involved in like a major hack was that one where you go to you go to this folder, because I used to have this on my computers all the time. I used to do local web development, whatever. And a local copy of my website would have been there, except I moved it because at the time I had 2 drives and the bigger one was, where I wanted that. And the attack, which left a file there, it erased everything in there and left a file that said, "You've been hacked by the Chinese." And
I remember that.
Yeah, it was a big deal. It didn't impact me because I had moved the folder, right? And so, I mean, I'd moved, IS was pointing to a different folder on a different drive. So that folder was there, but it was empty. And, okay, I don't know. So this is kind of the opposite. It's like no one is installing IIS basically. And now everyone has this folder in their computer for some reason. It's like, what? And you're like, no, don't worry about it. It's a security thing. Like, now I am worrying about it. So maybe you could explain this a little bit better. I've not heard a good explanation for this.
Nor has Microsoft offered one.
Well, that I am very familiar with. So we're going to get to that. We're going to get to another version of that in a few minutes. Okay. So
I'm sorry I brought that up. I thought
no.
Steve covered it. We should probably mention it. I
don't know why we didn't write about it. I sometimes things like this happen and you see it and you're like, okay. What I don't want to do is write 3 stories about this.
Yeah, right? Yeah, I understand.
So in other words, it's like people are seeing a mysterious Inetpub folder on their file system. Like, okay. And then it's like Microsoft comments on it. And you're like, okay, they didn't.
Now I have to write another story.
And then, they released an update for Windows in July this year that gets rid of that folder that we were all freaking out about.
Now I have to write a 3rd story.
You know what I mean? Like, I don't want to spend time on it from a writing perspective. But yeah, no, you're right. This is something we should be discussing.
Well, I just made you mention in the show so that you're done. You're over. It's good.
Every week, man, there's something.
Sorry.
No, listen, I have 2 hours away from my wife and it's like you've just slotted right in.
I want you to pay attention to me.
My wife just walks in the room. It's like, what are you screwing up? I'm like, I'm sitting here reading.
Oh, I know the feeling.
Oh, God. Anyhow. Okay.
Kevin King says, I've never heard the word kludgy.
Oh, really?
So he's not obviously
welcome to our industry, Kevin.
Yeah.
I feel like we've been using that. That word has the origin of that word was the date that Windows was announced.
I did read a wonderful book, which I recommend to all. I listened to it on audio from George Gilder. It's called Microcosm, and it's really the best book ever. If you haven't read it, Paul, I know you love these industry books. It's the best book ever explaining what a miracle this revolution is. But the reader on the audiobook says kludgy. And he says it not once,
but
a bunch of times.
At least it's consistent.
And I want to go.
That's like I don't remember the book, but it was it's probably not the Steve Jobs biography, but some book on Apple. They would say iOS is iOS, and I'm like, dude, come on, like you gotta. I get it. Some words are complicated, Maybe there's a debate about how things are pronounced, but how do you know?
AI is not A1. DOS is not DOS.
No, it's A1 is actually HP sauce, as we call it.
HP sauce.
That's how you know it's not AI. Come on, man.
Clearly.
Anyway,
on with the show. I'm sorry. I'm going to now press the button.
Please don't apologize. My wife never does. So, sorry. So last week, my door's closed. I'm safe. So last week was week D. Right, in the Microsoft update schedule, we got the preview update for 23 H2, and I predicted that by Thursday, probably, or at least by the end of the week, we would get the similar update for 24 H2, and we did. They didn't say this, but the interesting thing is it was accompanied by 3 announcements. Right? So the typical preview update is not accompanied by any announcement. I mean, no, none. I mean, there's none. They don't announce it. They don't talk about it. But in this case, they referred to it as the general availability of recall.
Boy.
What? So I know we live in a world where words don't mean anything anymore, and I know most of Microsoft, not all of Microsoft, by the way, most of Microsoft still doesn't use these common terms we've used for decades, like RTM and GA and release candidate and all this stuff. Those words that had meaning, that were important. But general availability is not what recall is in right now. So for one thing, recall is a preview. It's still a preview. It is available to the public, but not automatically, right? You have to go get it. You have to be a seeker. We called that for 10 seconds, but it's a preview update. It will be generally available the Tuesday of Patch Tuesday in May, but still in preview, which to me, generally available in preview is an important part of that sentence, right? It still hasn't risen to the level where they feel comfortable taking off the preview tag. Right. So recall, which was announced last May, right before build, right at build, the week of build, is now finally something you could get generally out in the world, but asterisk, right? Like I said, it's in preview. It's in a preview update, which means you're not going to get it automatically unless you went and flipped that switch. It's only available on Copilot Plus PCs, which they're super proud of for some reason. 10% of some small category of PCs are now Copilot Plus PCs. They still believe all PCs will be Copilot Plus PCs, which is a low bar because, of course they will. All PCs will just have those capabilities, of course. But this is a tiny subset of the user base. I mean, if there are 1 to 1.45 whatever billion Windows users in the world, and whatever the number, 700 to 800 million of them right now are running Windows 11, maybe. I mean, the percentage that it could install this thing if they wanted to is still low single digit. It's really low single digit. So generally available, I guess we're calling it. They were super excited to have this announcement. So,
the other side of this is Copilot Plus PC is not generally available.
Yeah, right. Yeah, that's fair. I mean, when they went to x86 in the fall with the new AMD and Intel chips, they were very mealy-mouthed, again, to keep using that strange term, about it because they weren't allowed to use that term at the time of launch. And they would say, over time, these computers will get these features. And that is sort of what has happened. It's still happening. One of the new features that's generally available, I'm trying to see where I don't see it in the notes, but one of them at least is available only on Snapdragon-based Copilot Plus PCs. It will come to x86-based Copilot Plus PCs probably in June or July, but it's not, it hasn't all just kind of happened. So in any event, I
really want a Copilot Plus PC to just be a PC.
Yeah, I do too. And there are some there's some interesting problems, and a lot of them are related to security things because once you get into things like Windows Hello ESS, you have very strict requirements.
Hardware requirements. I mean, that's what I want is Copilot. That a current full spec PC has specific hardware requirements, which is already true.
Yep.
That includes all of the Copilot features. That's all. I want my GPU to count.
Yeah. Why? I mean, you spent several $100s on it and you could kick the crap out of these things. Why wouldn't you? I mean, yeah. 100%.
But remember how much trouble Microsoft got in when they said, Windows 11 requires TPM2.
TPM2.
Yeah. People got upset over that.
Of course. Mostly because
all kinds of things.
Right. TPM has been part of PCs for 20 years. I mean, TPM2 is more recent, but it's more recent, like 2011 recent. It's not, it's actually not that recent. This is actually a pretty low bar, but obviously, especially you hit our audience, there's guys out there running Intel 5th generation, blah, blah. And they're like, it runs Windows 11 fine. I don't see what the problem is. Like, well,
Yeah, that's what they say is it's not a technical requirement. I can run the operating system.
So it's weird. This is actually a little similar to that telemetry discussion, and I didn't get into this part of it, but Dave Plummer said something to the tune of Microsoft started this automatic telemetry thing with Windows 10. It was especially egregious when it first launched, but then they backed off from that. And I was like, I know a little bit about Windows. I don't remember that. So I went back and looked to see what he was talking about. And that's not what happened. What Microsoft did was they added all the privacy switches you see now during setup. So back then you had to go through settings to try to find these things, but now they give you like a little dashboard thing where you can just say no to whatever, things you don't want. They didn't change how the system works in the slightest. They just provided like a little UI, for you to click things. I think that's what he meant. So in this case, I don't know. I don't know anything about what's coming. Like I'm not trying to qualify what I'm saying because, oh my God, there's a huge announcement. I don't mean that, but it is inevitable that what Richard and everyone else wants will happen, right? That we will be able to use these features across our GPUs at least, and probably CPUs too, by the way, depending on the system, because these things will evolve and they'll be, in the case of a CPU, might be upgraded to have that make sense. But also, just the system requirements will evolve, right? So when Windows 11 first came out, this was outrageous to people, right? And to me, to some degree, because anyone could run this system on two different computers and say, yeah, it works fine. What's the problem? Mm-hmm. But this is a case where they actually did change how Windows works only in Windows 11. And now that TPM 2.0 versus, say, the 1.2 or 3, I forget what the other version was, what the capabilities are, it actually does require a TPM 2.0. So it's not really outrageous because by the time that happened, it was like 2023, 2024, whatever year. That thing had, like I said, had been out, I think, since 2011, if I remember the date correctly.
2014 for TPM.
2014. Okay, there you go. And there is no such thing as a modern PC that doesn't have it, for the most part. I know some people could build a thing and maybe that doesn't, but PC makers just ship this stuff. They just do. So
to that point, it's like you can't buy an ATX motherboard that doesn't have a TPM2 in it now. It's like that's been true for a while.
I hate to say that. So you would know, you know that better than I do. I almost didn't want to say that myself because I'm not 100% sure. I feel like you probably could do something stupid if you really wanted to, but
I don't know that.
But most people, yeah. Okay. So most people buy a computer. They don't really build it anyway. It doesn't matter, but it will, all the modern chipsets for years and years and years have all supported this. And, in the beginning, it was like, this feels like you're trying to force us to upgrade. And then the security story they have now, and it, some of it feels super recent, right? There's the whole the Secure Future Initiative and the Windows Resiliency Initiative or whatever. CloudStrike caused some rethink on some stuff. Windows Hello ESS, very rare before Copilot plus PC, now very common. Not 100%. I mean, I'm not saying it's universal, but it's very common and much more common than it was. So the security baseline here has actually gotten a lot better. And they have a good story now. This has not always been the case with Windows. I don't know if you follow the whole security thing at all, but we've had problems. And honestly, Windows 11, I think, is in good shape right now from that perspective. So this is a perfect
Windows
time.
10 goes out of support in 2025, at which point the TPM2 chip will be more than a decade old.
Yep. It's weird how many of these things interrelate. There's another story about VBS enclaves we're going to get to that ties into this, which another modern security feature requires this kind of modern underpinnings, not something they're ever going to put in Windows 10. And, yes, I understand the complaints like, oh, this Windows 10 would work for 5 or 10 more years. It'd be fine. What's the problem? Like, yeah, to some degree, absolutely. But for mainstream users, connecting to the internet, doing stuff. You kind of want to have the modern stuff, Yeah. And then this is the ideal time to release Recall in general availability because now we've got the whole secure thing going on in the underpinnings. Let's screw it up with this feature everyone seems to hate so much. We'll see. There's so much FUD around this thing. It kind of bothers me. I don't know if it's ironic or just the end game here is like, I've used it and I just don't see the use of it. So I just disable it. I don't ever enable it. Well, I mean, I've enabled it and disabled it, but I just don't see the use case for it for me. So I just don't worry about it. But if you do use it, it's like anything else related to security. If someone calls you and asks you for your social security number or your credit card number and you give it to them, I mean, that's kind of on you, So there is that aspect to it. But as far as the actual security, the steps they've taken to secure these snapshots, pretty pretty impressive.
It's funny. We had this conversation on Sunday with Daniel Rubino from Windows Central. And, in my opinion, there's two camps. There's the people, the reasonable camp like you, Paul, is the third, but there's people say,
okay, I was like, I'm curious which camp I'm in.
It's a security nightmare. Is it one side.
And then the other ones are like, kumbaya, I don't care about my personal.
I'm in the camp where they dumbed it down. I want it to cover not just one machine, but every one I use, everything I use. Yeah. It's not as useful if it
that's a
doesn't
different
know
camp. Yeah. No, so
that's the camp I'm in.
That was the first, I met the guy who claimed to have made this feature, and I said, dude, I have some questions for you. And he's like, here we go. And I'm like, no, I don't think you understand what I'm going to ask. It's not what these other idiots are asking.
Not less.
I said, this feature is useless to me unless I can get it everywhere.
Right.
Yeah. I want this on all my computers. I want it to sync. And he goes, yes. And he goes, look, we will get there. But he says, we can't do that now. No. like you understand, like there's going to be pushback on this. I'm like, oh no, I get that. But what I'm saying is I use a lot of different machines. Exactly. I want this on my phone.
Should be on the phone, your laptop, your desktop, your tablet.
Imagine you're in
TV.
just a simple
your other
scenario.
Laptop, your other laptop.
Well,
that's our problem because
I do have dozens of devices, right. but just normal person stuff. I'm in a store and I'm buying a pair of socks or whatever.
It should know that.
Well, I researched this earlier on my computer.
Right.
Could you tell me about the green socks I researched and then I can go buy them?
Yeah.
Nope. Because we're not crossing that machine divide. So
I sure the heck do that with OneNote and Loop.
Yeah, exactly. And look, there are ways around this, obviously, but ways around
apps.
Find or just even like browser sync. I guess you could go try to find your history or something.
I've been using this in Melbourne where I go look something up on Google Maps on this laptop. And then when I walk out the door with my phone and open Google Maps, the link that's showing for the next thing, the last thing you search for is what I searched on the laptop.
Exactly. And that's the way.
And you have to have that moment where you're like, it just worked. Like it literally, they're there.
Yeah. So recall's a little trickier because there was such pushback on it when it was first announced. We have to go through this. I don't know. I almost call it a triage phase. It's like we're just going to have to endure it and see what happens. See if anyone actually uncovers some actual. The things I've seen so far that are recent are so stupid. It makes me want to scream. And when you brought up the Inetpub folder, I thought you were going to bring this up, and I was like, oh man, we're going to have to talk about this. And I'll just mention it very briefly. You have to have Windows Hello ESS enabled.
Yeah,
which means biometric security.
Yeah.
Except it doesn't completely mean that because you also have to have a PIN. So you have to have a PIN. This is a requirement for any Windows computer that has a password of any kind.
Right.
It has to be a PIN. If you bring up a new computer, it doesn't matter what kind, a Windows computer, and you enroll your finger or your face or whatever into Windows Hello, the next thing you do is you create a PIN. You can't get by that. You have to.
Right.
So one of the complaints was, well,
I got a PIN.
Doesn't even use biometrics. You can get in with a PIN. And I'm like, yeah, okay. But the same security still applies. The other thing, this was the most asinine one. They use all these incredible technologies, Windows Hello ESS, secure enclaves, isolated RAM, the whole thing to protect these snapshots. And the guy goes, yeah, but if someone gets the disk, it's just encrypted. I'm like,
that's fine.
What do you mean? It's just that
everything's on that disk anyway.
It's encrypted, is what you just said. Like, what are you talking about?
Just encrypted.
I can't. Look, I'm not saying something isn't or can't go wrong with this. It's Microsoft. Obviously, we could have problems. What I am saying is no one has actually highlighted a problem, a real problem.
I think maybe that's it. Is that again? This comes down to I trust Microsoft.
Yes,
and. So just the very fact that they're collecting all this information makes people nervous because we don't know how secure it's going to be. But I am on the camp where you dumbed it down to respond to those nervous Nellies, and now it's less than useful.
So as it turns out, they've also made it harder to use because even if you're okay with using it on a single computer, and this is it's not just recall. It's just with the Windows Hello experience in Windows now. Which I guess it's Windows Hello ESS, but I believe it's going to be the common experience across all computers. It requires an extra step now, and it's really annoying. Like, it's really annoying. So if you're in your computer and you're like, I need the password for this thing, and it goes, here you go, Paul. Oh, we got to see it. Make sure it's you. And it's like, bling, bling, bling. It's like, yep, it's you. You're like, okay. How come we're not going? Oh, I got to click something?
Is
Why?
it really you?
I have to
Are you
click something?
human?
Why am I clicking? You see it's me. Do it.
Are you
But
alive?
No, you got to, like an idiot. So
It's only a matter of time before we have to do CAPTCHAs to log into our computer. I guarantee you.
if you actually want to use Recall, and if you are actively using Recall, it is really annoying because that comes up all the time.
Yeah.
It's like you go through a subway and the door closes on you and you're like, is it really you?
This
Let's
is
make sure.
recording everything that happens to me. I wish it could also record everything that happens on my computers. Send it all to whatever, the Russian AI. I don't know, the Chinese
Russian
AI. I don't care. I just
Yeah.
want to know,
Yakov
what
and
I
that.
did yesterday. Do you mind?
I know.
That's all I'm asking. I
look,
really think the world is divided into these two camps and will be increasingly.
there will be people who never trust that. So, but
That's right.
that's,
But there's people who never charge anything on the internet either because they don't think it's safe.
I don't actually mind that those people exist, right?
Just don't get in my way.
Yeah. But what I don't like is that they're the ones who will write articles and be like, well, you can't trust these people.
I know.
And now, it may, I'm making this up. I didn't see this there, but maybe in USA Today, there's like, hey, here's this new feature in Windows. You're going to want to make sure you're disabled. And they're coming from a place of ignorance and they're preaching to people who don't know any better. And what are you doing?
They're just stirring up.
What are you doing?
Outrage.
Yeah. I don't
Because
like
it's good for views. Let's be honest.
I
That's
think
why.
it's cheap and it's unfair.
It's cheap.
And by the way, tomorrow there'll be a recall vulnerability. And
Right.
by the way, it doesn't mean that I'm wrong on this point. It just means that nothing is perfect. And maybe this was always going to happen. I don't know. But the reason it's in preview now, the reason it was going to be in preview last summer, the reason they don't call it not a preview, right, is because of this. They want to get it out in front of people and let's see how people use it. Let's see what happens. Because it's one thing to test it in some isolated group, small crowd, whatever. You got to get it out in the real world before you find out. That's one thing we have learned with Windows. You put it out in the world and, there's
What
a little
happens when
scenario
you have a
knowing
billion users?
all of whom go in a different direction
Right.
and have different hardware, So we'll see.
All right. I need to take a break.
Yes. Sorry.
Coming up, what do Microsoft Windows and Formula One racing have in common?
Wow. Is it a crash and burn thing?
No. No, it's not what you think.
Is it about
It's not what
fire?
you think. Stay tuned. It has nothing to do with crashing.
That's full on clickbait right there.
That's good clickbait, isn't it? I'm learning. This show is brought to you today by US Cloud, the #1 Microsoft Unified Support Replacement. We've been telling you about US Cloud. Global leader, #1 in third-party Microsoft support for enterprises. They support 50 of the Fortune 500. And why? Because switching to US Cloud could save your business 30 to 50% over Microsoft Unified and Premier support. That's big savings. And it's better. It's faster, twice as fast, average time to resolution versus Microsoft. And they'll give you information Microsoft may not want to give you. For instance, are you maybe spending a little more than you think, than you're aware of on Microsoft Azure? Well, US Cloud is excited to tell you about a new offering, their Azure Cost Optimization Services. Honestly, when was the last time you evaluated your Azure user? It's easy for it to just kind of get a little out of control. If it's been a while since you looked, you probably have some, we call it Azure sprawl, a little spend creep going on. But good news, saving on Azure is easier than you might have thought with US Cloud. US Cloud now has, this is so cool. And again, I don't think it's in Microsoft's interest to tell you this, but it's definitely in yours. US Cloud offers an 8-week Azure engagement. It's powered by VBox. It identifies key opportunities to reduce costs across your entire Azure environment. But it's not even just automated. You're not alone because you're going to get expert guidance, access to US Cloud's senior engineers. They have an average of over 16 years with Microsoft products. I mean, these guys are the best in the business. At the end of the 8 weeks, you're going to have an interactive dashboard, which will it won't do anything, but let you know where there are rebuild opportunities, downscaling opportunities, resources, virtual machines you don't even use. which means you can look at them and say, yeah, I might want to reallocate those precious IT dollars towards something I need. Like, you want to increase your savings? Take the Azure savings and put them into US Cloud's Microsoft support. That's what a few US Cloud's other customers do. And then eliminate your unified spend, and the savings go on and on. Here's a quote from Sam. He's the technical operations manager at a company called Bead Gaming. He gives US Cloud 5 stars and gave us this quote. Quote, we found some things that have been running on Azure for 3 years, which no one was checking. These VMs were, I don't know, 10 grand a month. Not a massive chunk in the grand scheme of how much we spend on Azure. But once you get to about 40 or 50,000 a month, it really started to add up. That's the point. It's little dribbles at a time, but in the long run, you could really save. It's simple. Stop overpaying for Azure. Identify and eliminate Azure creep and boost your performance all in 8 weeks with US Cloud. Visit uscloud.com, book a call today, find out how much your team can save. That's uscloud.com to book a call today and get faster Microsoft support for less. uscloud.com. We thank him so much for supporting Windows Weekly. Now, do you see what I'm talking about when I say what Microsoft has in common with Formula One? Maybe not. Maybe you don't know. There's a big controversy in Formula One racing, which is a pretty intense sport. You know, those drivers are really, the head of it passed a rule saying no swearing allowed. And if you swear, we're going to fine you. And if you do it 3 times, we're going to suspend you. Now, these are the superstars of racing. I
would have a problem in this league.
It's a little hard to not swear when you're under such stress. Anyway, Microsoft's doing, well, they're not going to fine you, but they're going to help you.
Yeah. So apparently so many of us are talking to our computers so much or to AI and using them for whatever purposes, but we're getting these transcriptions, and it's not pretty for a lot of us, you know?
Yeah, I'm surprised just how mean, like this, if you were talking to a person, this is an HR violation. Like, why are you talking to software this way? It's kind of,
you should hear Lisa
talk to
talk
myself
Siri
this way, you know?
She does not say, hey, you know who, stop.
I know.
She uses the F word every time.
Because anyone who's used Siri has.
Yeah, you're just mad.
And then she goes, you don't have to be a jerk about it. And it's like, you don't have to be an idiot either, but you are. You know, I just...
and then you realize you're arguing with software and like, what's happening in my life?
Listen, you got to get the little wins where you can. But so, yeah, this is 24H2 dev and beta build. So God knows when this will ever appear. But when you're doing voice typing in Windows, which could be anything, you could be dictating to a Word document, but really it's for AI. There will be, they're testing now a filter, a profanity filter.
So does it like cartoons swear them out? Is that what's happening?
I think it just takes it out. That would be hilarious, actually. It would just go, you know, they have like a little sound. That would be pretty funny. He's like, Paul, what do you think about this? You know, like, I don't know.
That's what the Charlie Brown parents were doing.
Yeah, exactly.
That all makes sense.
So I think that's pretty funny, but that's fine.
So where does the filter, I mean, is it a filter for you or is it a filter for, I don't understand what's being filtered.
It's for voice typing, which could be globally in Windows.
So if you swear, it won't put a swear word into the typing.
If you could be using accessibility features that, you know, recognize
Apple does that. They change every F word into duck.
Right. There's a setting now finally to
makes me really ducking mad.
So in Windows 13, they're going to have a filter to bring the profanity back.
Yeah. There you go. Replace the ducks.
No, it's an option, right? So you actually have to turn this on. Like,
okay. There's some people very offended. I know.
I think most of it, you know, when I was a kid, the thing the version of this is you would hear yourself on tape for the first time. You're like, I don't sound like that. And everyone's like, yeah, actually, you sound exactly like that. And now, you know, it's like, I don't swear that much. Like, yeah, you have a problem, actually. You might have Tourette's. I don't know. So it just doesn't, this seems like a fine idea to me. I think
it's fine.
Yeah, it's fine.
It's optional. It's off until you turn it on. That's fine.
Yeah. One of the features that's coming out in the preview updates we now have in 23 and 24H2, and then will come out in Patch Tuesday, is a feature that Microsoft hasn't really given a name to, but it's improved Windows search. They briefly called it semantic search, or Windows search with semantic indexing, which I think is a really good term because it goes back to the conversation that Richard and I had about it's not really indexing, but it is indexing. Like it's a different kind of indexing because you want instant search results. It can't it's not going to then go and scan all your files, right? It's building an index of some kind, right? So improved Windows search, for lack of a better term, which is a bunch of things, but built into search in Windows, whether you get it from the taskbar, the start interface, the whatever the thing is called, search highlights interface, or from File Explorer, right? Search for files, search for documents, search for photos, and then all documents that are in a cloud storage, but only OneDrive now, but in other cloud services in the future too. You need to sign in with a Microsoft account to get this feature. For now, they've just started testing the ability to use a work or school account, meaning an Enter ID account. So you'll be able to do, I think semantic search to me seems like the right term, but this improved Windows search is coming, again, in the future. We don't know when, but sometime this summer, maybe 25H2, whatever it is coming too. So the way they dribble this stuff out, this came up a little early in that Copilot Plus PC bit where Snapdragon tends to get these things first and it goes to x64. This one is the worst example. It's like every sub feature of this feature has been tested like in different places at different times. It's very strange. So a year from now or something, we'll just have it everywhere. It'll work fine. I don't know. It's kind of interesting.
I mean, they could ship a thing called improved search every week. That's but no version numbers, no features. Just
this is I should say is a Copilot Plus PC feature. You were asking about GPUs, and I raised the ugly possibility of CPUs. But why can't we do this kind of indexing? It doesn't matter if it's slow, and it won't be. But let's pretend it would be because we don't have an NPU. Who cares? It's the index. Let it run overnight. I want the search result to be fast, right? It shouldn't matter how you build the index, but.
Shouldn't matter.
It's not how Windows works. No. So here's, if you didn't see this, Richard, you'll enjoy this. One thing we brought up repeatedly on the show is the illogical nature by which Microsoft tests new features for Windows in the Insider program. They have Canary, Dev, Beta, Release Preview.
Yeah.
They have multiple paths in at least a few of those. Release Preview, for example, could have a Release Preview build of 23H2, 24H2, and Windows 10 all out at the same time. Mm-hmm. Someone asked online, as someone would, why? Well, A, what's the point of Canary? And B, why don't new features follow this logical cascade from the top to the bottom? So Brandon LeBlanc, who I've known for a long time, is a good guy. I'm not dumping on him for this, but unfortunately, as the mouth of Sauron in this case, says there hasn't been a specific order for a long time now. There isn't a progression like we had with rings. That's why we moved to channels. Features can and will show up in preview and dev and beta often before Canary, simply due to the way code flows on our side and the code base. So
this is basically, it's different teams with different workflows.
Yeah. I don't know what to say to this. I just saw this right before the show started. So when I read this, I want to go back and read their announcement about moving to channels.
Right.
Because I don't really remember it that way. I'm not saying he's wrong, but I do question it as a rationale. Like the one thing he doesn't say here is why. I mean, I guess he sort of does, but I don't understand.
How does it clear things up in any way? It just
that's what I mean. Like I don't quite understand.
It's really an admission of guilt. It's like you can't feel like there's any order because there's no order.
There is no order.
Well, there's no order to this because there's no order in our universe. Like,
there you go.
Okay. I mean,
So but
Windows
there was Insider,
order.
4 stages of entropy. That's all there is.
They're not racing down the same path. They're kind of just blooming off into different directions, I guess. So anyway, that's I'm not dumping on Brandon. I like Brandon. I please.
This is his response to Sean Endicott from Windows Central, who said, "It does seem like the various insider rings are out of order."
Well, this is in our world. This is the complaint. People will. Well, Richard has asked this question out loud many times.
Yeah.
Like we all wonder about this. Like, why have this system if you're not going to use the system? Yeah. It seems like the right way to triage to find bugs or whatever it might be is to have it go through all of those channels in order. And then hit stable, and to have the greatest possible outcome of success.
And I just were looking from the political perspective that the folks who set up that order have moved on.
Oh,
and and nobody took charge of it, and so it's whatever you have access to, you'll deploy to.
Yeah, I see little glimpses of this, but I feel like a lot of the engineering has left the building, and sometimes that's not the case. I don't mean to just dump on the whole system, but 99% of it easily, and it doesn't feel like there is like an adult.
No. Well, it also speaks to what is Canary really?
Right.
Canary is really one team couldn't get out of any of the 3 existing channels. And so they made a new one.
And what's your peer review exactly? We don't know yet. We're working on stuff. I don't know. What do you mean? It's very strange.
I'm making the thing with this stuff, and I'm only allowed to, get my bonus if I ship. So I'm going to ship.
There's a point to be made that there's kind of an accepted industry meaning for these things.
Well, this is what I've been saying. Though. It's like words matter.
Yeah, words matter. Yeah, that's what you just said.
But they don't. In our world, they don't anymore, right? This is what I mean. Like, it's like why even use these names? Because
you do get to pick which one of these you want installed on your machine.
You call Canary random uselessness, and then maybe would make more sense because it's
I'd like to subscribe to that, please.
Yeah, it's like you never know what you're going to get. It's like a box of chocolates, except they're all those little crazy cherry things no one wants. Like, but they have this exciting new feature over here in Dev. Well, join Dev, idiot. Yeah, we don't do that here. Yeah. We do stupid things here. I don't know, but that's not what they say. It is what they do. I don't know.
Well, and we were back in the day sold this idea that there are progressively less stable versions between these choices, and depending on your tolerance to instability, you can pick.
Right. That's right.
That is simply not the case.
It is everywhere else in our world. Everywhere else. If you look at any web browsers that have like Canary channel and whatever other channels, anywhere in software development, the Canary version is always the first one. There's a reason they call it Canary, by the way.
Yeah.
There's a dead yellow bird in the bottom of a cage.
Yeah.
This is where you put new features first when maybe they're not quite baked, except in Windows 11 or in the Windows Insider program.
Right.
So I don't know. Anyway, so did he answer the question? He answered the question. I don't know. He still didn't answer the questions. I guess is maybe
answer the question left and resulting in less satisfaction. Right. It's like,
right. It's
other than that part that says, at least I'm not crazy.
I'm so glad you addressed it. And now I want to hurt myself. It's Anyway, that's whatever. Welcome everyone to my world. Okay. Microsoft has always been less aggressive than, say, Apple at deprecating and then removing features, specifically from Windows in this case. That has changed in recent years. They've gotten more aggressive. Windows 11, I would say the last 2 versions especially, we've seen kind of rapid fire deprecations. And just this past week, they announced, there's no announcement. They don't make a big thing, but it's, if you go to the Microsoft Learn site, you can see the deprecated Windows feature list. You'll see that the Maps app has been deprecated and will be removed from the Microsoft Store in July. Not literally no one, but no one uses this app. I will say literally no one should ever have used this app. It never made any sense. Writing books about Windows 10 and then Windows 11, I would kind of half-heartedly cover it because I kind of had to. It was part of the operating system. It's like, I don't understand what this thing's doing here. No one's going to use this. Now I'm going to hear from all of you guys that do use it. So thank you for that, Paul, for saying that out loud. But to me, it makes sense. This shouldn't be part of the operating system. It doesn't make any sense. There was some back-end stuff they had done with Bing Maps as an API and moving that into Azure Maps, and it's semi-related to this. But
yeah, you were saying they're getting more aggressive. It's like it still seems to be a pattern of only removing apps that nobody's heard of. right?
Yeah. Which is the cynical commonality that we have in our industry is no matter what it is, like it does not just Microsoft, some company will announce they're getting rid of some features, some apps, some whatever it is. And someone inevitably on some social media channel somewhere will say, they still make that? Yeah, dude. And that's the problem because, like when Microsoft killed Skype, Microsoft this coming month it will retire Skype, this really good brand.
Less than a week. Yeah.
It's happening quick. There were still people saying that about Skype. And I'm like,
dude, I've made more Skype calls in the past month out of pure nostalgia.
Yeah. Did you enjoy all the spam and the AI bots? And
Yeah. Absolutely. And the random crashing and
that will cause cure the nostalgia problem real quick.
Just to have a reminder, you stopped using this for a reason.
There's maps to me makes sense, right? We're getting rid of maps. It's fine. But there's another thing they're getting rid of. And this one, they don't really explain this well either. And I'm kind of logicked my way through what I think is the rationale here. But there's a security feature called virtualization-based security enclaves. VBS enclaves, right? I mentioned it briefly up front. It's part of the platform that is Copilot plus PC. It's part of now this Windows Resiliency Initiative, I think is the name of it, which is itself part of the broader security, whatever initiative, Microsoft, who knows, the new version of trustworthy computing, whatever, zero trust, yada, yada, yada. This is when David Weston pops up all of a sudden. And starts talking about security in Windows, right? And you're like, okay, cool. Windows 11, like I said, when it first shipped, didn't really have anything that required any of the hardware they said you needed. But now this is one of those features where these things are all tied in together. So secure boot, 2PM2, VBS enclaves, Windows Hello, ESS, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Build on the things that came before, secure boot, whatever. But these things all are part of the same thing. To me, the way that this has been shipped to the public was Copilot plus PC. It's what Microsoft uses to literally separate the memory and the storage for your snapshots, right? It's part of the security model for recall. It has been since day one, by the way. They didn't never change that, but it's going to be something that's just in Windows, right? But when they added it to Windows, they added it to all supported versions of Windows 11, which at the time included 23H2. And they're deprecating it in 23H2 and older, but there are no older versions that are supported anymore. I don't think this is actually necessary for 23H2. 23H2 is exiting support in October.
Imminently, yeah.
So, yeah, why not? I wish they had explained it a little bit because I kind of had to work my way through that argument. I think that is what it is. But in the sense that like Windows Hello ESS, here's a good one. In the sense that Copilot plus PC is the canary, if you will, for the Windows Hello ESS coal mine. That's true of these other security features too, right? VBS enclave, et cetera. So I know there are lower level OS features or whatever and other features of the OS that use VBS enclaves. But right now, they're either relegated to Copilot plus PCs or to high-end corporate PCs that, honestly, most companies probably aren't even using this stuff yet. So there's kind of no reason to support it back on the older version. That's about to disappear anyway. So I think that's it. It was a weird thing to see them deprecate this brand new security. Yeah. But then it's like, wait, so it's 23H2 and older, which is 23H2. They never brought it to Windows 10 and they won't. Okay, it's probably fine.
So, and I wonder if they're finally getting to a set of features with like, hey, this is really a problem to do regress deploy.
Yeah, it's just, right.
So we're not going to.
They did make that. By the way, there was that platform shift, low level with 24H2 that they never really talked about. That may tie into this as well, and it may tie into that conversation I had earlier about the Windows 11 not living up to the needs of these hardware requirements in the beginning, but then actually getting there. I mean, maybe 24H2, if you will, is where they actually always wanted this to be, or whatever. I mean, CrowdStrike is the real reason some of this is happening, but whatever the rationale.
I don't know. The message has been pretty clear. We're not going to do anything to avoid another CrowdStrike. That's not a thing.
Well, it's a cynical take on it. I mean, Yeah.
Am I cynical or am I wise? I'm just not sure anymore.
I mean, I was concise and correct. I don't know. Yeah. I mean, right. Sure. What a world.
Yeah, sometimes
So-
the power just blinks.
As we pause for this philosophical moment, I'd like to take an opportunity to talk about a sponsor. You can reflect while I talk about CashFly. When we say, as I have for 15 years, bandwidth for Windows Weekly is provided by CashFly at CACHEFLY.com. I mean it. We literally are brought to you by CashFly. For over 20 years, CashFly has held the track record for high-performing, ultra-reliable content delivery, serving over 5,000 companies in over 80 countries. We'll make it 5,001 because we've been with them practically since the beginning, certainly since the beginning of our shows. CashFly is the only CDN, content delivery network, built for throughput. I mean, that's what they care about. Ultra low latency video streaming delivers video to over 1 million concurrent users. They've got lightning fast gaming, delivers downloads faster, yes, but also as you play, zero lag, zero glitches. If you have images on your site or in your content, you'll love CashFly's mobile content optimization, which automatically, very simply, optimizes all the images for all the possible screen sizes so your site loads faster no matter what device. The thing that made a big difference to us, we were just starting out as a podcast network. We didn't know what our bandwidth was going to look like. It was very spiky. So CashFly gave us, and they will give you, flexible month-to-month billing for as long as you need to figure that out, and then discounts once you figure it out for fixed terms. The point being, we designed our own contract when we switched to CashFly. So will you. CashFly, by the way, we're excited. We've been moved over now to CashFly's Pure Storage. This is brand new for CashFly. Patrick, our engineer, I think got everything moved over. We were talking about it yesterday. Pure Storage is the IT pioneer that delivers the world's most advanced data storage technology and services, which means as a CashFly customer, we're getting performance, reliability, flexible scalability, and predictable pricing. This is so great. CashFly is replacing all of its legacy systems with Pure Storage's cutting-edge technology, which means CashFly has achieved a 500% boost, 5x, in compute power and reduced power consumption by nearly 90%, slashing operating expenses while enhancing delivery speeds for its customers worldwide. I think we are now entirely on Pure Storage, right, Patrick? You moved everything over. CashFly's modernization, it's kind of cool because here's a company that's been around for 2 decades, but they are on the cutting edge. In fact, it's a pivotal time because they're preparing to further enhance their object storage solution. This new offering promises to redefine how businesses manage, store, and scale unstructured data with unparalleled speed and reliability. I couldn't be happier to be a partner, and I think you will be too. CashFly delivers content up to 158% faster than other major CDNs. They allow you to do what we've been doing for a long time now, shield your site content inside their cloud, so there are no cache misses. You get a 100% cache hit ratio. And with CashFly's elite managed packages, you get the VIP treatment. Your dedicated account manager will be with you from day one, ensuring a smooth implementation and reliable 24/7 support when you need it. All I can say is we could not be happier, and I know you will be too. Learn how you can get your first month free at cashfly.com/twit. I'll say it again, CACHEFLY.com/twit. Thank you, CashFly. We couldn't do without you. All right, back to Windows Weekly. Mr. Paul Thurrott, Mr. Richard Campbell. What is this corporate stuff?
Yeah,
what are we talking
new
about?
segment.
It's a new segment. I figured the show wasn't boring enough. And
actually, we're going to get quarterly results in about an hour, right? Something like that.
Yeah. I know. That's going to come in hot. That'll be interesting. So I don't know if anyone's following world affairs. I'm not sure how to even walk into this. We have tariffs now in the United States. They're reciprocal. I think they appear to be designed to punish our partners or something. It's very strange. But Europe has begun looking at whether they could reduce their reliance on the United States and U.S. technology, which is tough because U.S. technology is big tech, right? It's pretty much all of it.
Yep.
Although China would like to do something about that. But anyway, so there was this brief moment here where I thought the EU is going to ordain some Linux distribution as what everyone had to use or something. And it looks like it's not going to go in that direction. But I don't think anything was announced today, but there was a chance that as early as today, the EU might have come out and said, look, the truth is there's not much we can do about this. We kind of rely on the United States. But to reassure their customers in Europe, Microsoft has issued a statement of sorts explaining what they would do.
I don't know if they're saying EUOS.
Right. So that's the thing I don't think is actually going to happen now.
It says this. It is not a project of the European Union.
Yeah,
but it should be.
Okay. No, I don't think they're going to. I don't think they're going to.
It ain't going to happen. All right.
Yeah. Look. I mean, LibreOffice or whatever it was called, OpenOffice did great for Munich. They're all. I don't know.
They switched back, didn't they?
They did. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'd love to see that work. I think that'd be great. But anyway, I was hoping to see something like that. But I don't. It looks now like this isn't going to happen. So
interesting.
Microsoft obviously is not number one in cloud computing, but they do a very good job about building data center capacity in the locales where they do business. And of course, they have these data protection boundaries, et cetera, et cetera. But, we live in a world where people fly through the United States or to the United States and get, their phones searched and they end up in a camp in San Salvador or whatever it is. And Microsoft is basically saying, look, we're going to protect your data from the United States government. If they try to access your data, we're going to take them to court and we're going to prevent it. So I don't know that that's enough if you consider that the courts in our country are probably in the government's pocket at this point. So I don't know, but it's an interesting thing. I mean, this is a problem for Microsoft if big customers in other parts of the world start walking away. History has shown us that when you do things like prevent the Chinese from accessing the latest cell phone and AI chipsets, that they learn how to build them themselves. And instead of having the intended effect, what you've done is taught these places to not rely on you anymore. And companies like Huawei and other companies that are in networking and in smart devices, phones and computers and all that, are just making their own stuff. So it could happen in Europe, I guess, if it gets bad enough. But this is Microsoft's attempt to prevent that, or I help
reassure their customers, perhaps.
Yeah. In other problems, Google has now lost 3 major antitrust cases in the United States, which is an astonishing sentence to even say. Epic, online search, and now advertising. For 3 weeks, and I think we're in week 2 of 3. The judge in the search case, which is the most damaging one so far, potentially damaging, is having hearings for the remedy phase, right? Like what will be, I call it a punishment. It's kind of a simplistic term, but what are we going to do about this? Like how are we going to prevent future abuses? We've seen a number of companies line up to say, I would love to buy Chrome. Oh, is Chrome for sale? I would love to have Chrome. Let's, how much do you want? How much do you want for Chrome? Like, we'll take Chrome.
Wasn't OpenAI one of them?
OpenAI is one of them. Perplexity, DuckDuckGo, which claims it can't afford it. Yahoo has said they would do it.
I'm still trying to figure out what Chrome is worth, because on Lyra's last time I looked, they don't sell it.
Yeah, right. Chrome is one of the avenues of distribution that works in their favor for making search the default and then all the advertising revenues that come off the back of this. So tied to this, Google Alphabet announced their revenues the other day. They're doing pretty good. 90 billion in revenues for the quarter. 90 billion in one quarter.
Wow.
Advertising related revenues were almost 67 billion of that figure. So 74% of their revenues come from advertising.
Yeah, how's that income diversification thing going there, guys?
Well, I will say, so the businesses they have that are not ad related, which is subscriptions, platforms, and devices, Pixel and all that stuff, is 10 billion in revenues, up double digits, 16%. Google Cloud, 12.3 billion in revenues, up 22%, also double digit.
All right.
So non-advertising based revenues from this company were about 22.6 billion, which is about 25%. It's not bad, but it's not 90 billion.
Yeah.
So I don't see a version of this where Google loses advertising revenue or anything like that. But is there a version where they lose 25% of it or something? Yeah. I mean,
and we are definitely, even before the AI wave, you had a lot more product searches being done on Amazon. Yeah. And a lot of content searches done on Facebook. Like, they've been encroaching for a while.
The big threat for them is the one that's happening right now, which is AI. And a lot of people are using OpenAI, ChatGPT especially, but whatever. And yes, but this is the argument Microsoft made in their antitrust case 25 years ago, whatever it was, that, the thing you don't understand, government or court or whatever judge, is that there's always, it doesn't matter how dominant you are, there's always another player right around the corner who's going to out innovate us and enter some new market or whatever it is and put us out of business. And but what we don't want is for you to ride that out by continuing to dominate the market that you illegally own now and abuse, your customers, your partners, your competitors, prevent innovation, et cetera. It's like, it could happen. Like, the fact that this is problematic for them, which it is okay, but it doesn't obviate the past 20 years of what you've done. So there's a big thing going on there. But this is an incredibly successful company. Microsoft is going to announce their revenues in the next 30 minutes or so, and I bet it's not $90 billion. It's going to be a big number, but it'll be close. But they make a lot of money on advertising.
But I also think this is all, a pattern of antitrust that turns into a consent decree.
Yes. And I think we must have talked about this last week. I think the smartest thing Google could do, and Apple too, and whatever else, is settle with the idea of, like, look, we get it. Something's going to happen. We should have a say in this outcome. Google, their CEO was on the stand and testified today. I didn't put this in the notes, but his argument was Google's argument, which is like, you have these remedies that the U.S. government has suggested, taking away search, making us give our results to partners and competitors or whatever, yada, yada, yada. It amounts to a de facto divestiture of search, meaning you're forcing the company to break up. And it's like, that is what it is. You're right. It's like, well, we spent all these years, on research, and we have all this intellectual property, and now you want us to open a kimono. And it's like, that is what we want. What's your point? You didn't just do something good. You did the bad thing too. You don't just get to keep benefiting from it. So, we'll see. I agree that what the government wants is extreme, but you might make the case that it needs to be extreme because the abuse is extreme. It's kind of hard to say, but I don't know. We'll see what happens. I don't think the worst case outcome is what's going to happen, but whatever. They're big and they're going to fall, I think. And speaking of big and going to fall, they're going to negotiate. They've been failing so far, but they're trying to get to that threshold where they got to make a deal. I presume, like, at some point, they just have to make a deal. If only there was some precedent, maybe one from the industry that could guide them in this path.
Where's their Brad Smith going, guys, make a deal?
Right. Well, maybe it's Brad Smith. Maybe this is where he should go. I don't know.
He needs a new job. Great.
Yep. We'll see. Intel also reported their earnings. Maybe the less said about that, the better.
Come on. Flat earnings is good news.
Flat earnings is better than negative.
What it has been.
The problem is it was only like 10% of the announcement. And the rest of it's really bad. So these guys are going to hit rock bottom. There's no doubt about it. Like they're planning on it. They're counting on it. So they've lowered their prediction for the coming quarters. The stock took a dump. It was like just the whole thing is falling apart. So I'm trying to find something good in here. Like revenues from PCs declined 8%. Revenue from AI chips, for data centers are up 8%. AI or Intel Foundry, which is not really part of these earnings, but they're up a little bit. But these were small numbers, honestly, comparatively speaking. So I don't know. There was a TSMC, I think, broke ground on like a third new facility in the United States, and it's like this awesome, gigantic Death Star looking thing. And then like out in Ohio, there's like a lonely piece of rebar sticking up out of the ground with like a cricket. That's the new Intel plant that's never going to get built. I don't know. It doesn't look good, but I don't know. And then I don't even know why I put this in here. Samsung's doing, I guess their new phones are doing great because people don't know how to buy good phones. I don't know. So they're doing fine, I guess. Too much editorializing. And then we'll get back to this when it happens, but Microsoft is going to announce their earnings during the show. So
of course, that's a rule.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah. They used to do it like the day after the show, which I thought was inconveniently timed. And then they proved me wrong. It could be worse. So anyway, we talked about Build coming soon. Richard and I are going. And
I wanted to ask you if you, so you're going, are you going to do something there? Or?
Yeah, we'll do a show from there.
Yep. I'm working on the schedule, so I've got a block out space for
because we were going to do the keynote in the club, but you're probably busy at that time.
That would be Monday.
Yeah.
I need to make sure. Let me just make sure before I agree to do anything like that. But well, it's going to be busy.
If only I could say things like that. No, I'll be doing it. I'll be there anyway. But we'd love to have you. Or you could even pop in, right? Mm-hmm. So that's actually 9 a.m. Pacific. We have it down for on Monday the 19th. Yeah. So we're going to stream that in our Discord. Look, I'm going to be there. I'll be doing my thing. If you want to join us, that'd be great. If not, that's fine. I understand.
Yeah, no, I would like to. I'm just not sure if we have any requirements.
It's possible. Okay.
Yeah.
Are you there? So you're there as guests of Microsoft doing stuff for them, or?
No, I'm just going as press. But
your requirements are like interviews and stuff. Yeah. Okay.
Well, they might. I don't. Let me just see. I'm not sure.
Yeah. Let me know. Let me know. It's no hurry.
I mean, theoretically, we're in the audience at Build for the keynote.
Yeah, I'm hoping I'm not in the audience. But that would be one of the possibilities for sure.
If you're in the audience, you can join us. Yeah. Be in the audience. We'll be in the audience together.
Yeah. So this is kind of interesting because Google I/O and Build are overlapping this week. They're on the same basic days, right?
Yeah,
I think
it's almost seems like it's super deliberate. Like
it's absolutely super deliberate because Google has their own place for this. They could do it anywhere at any time, and they pick the exact same time. And it's like, okay, fine. Yeah, you're making people like me choose which one to go to. This one is easy for me. I'm obviously going to go to the Microsoft event, but there are a lot of people like, I got to think about this.
Yeah, we have to stream. I have to get up early both days because we have to stream.
Yeah,
the next day the Google keynote. Yeah.
So for the first time ever, I think Google is going to have a separate Android event before Google I/O. Usually
that's
they do.
Weird.
Yeah. Now I think it's tied to they changed the development schedule for Android. They used to ship it late in the third quarter, and then it would go out into devices later. They cited unnamed partners and their schedules, and they meant Samsung, right? Because Samsung does the one big bang event for the S25 they just did in January, but they had been doing like a foldable event in the late summer, early fall. This year, they're allegedly going to have it early in July. And now that the schedule for the next version of Android makes sense for that, they're able to, I think, move it where they wanted to put it. So I think that's why they're doing it. And maybe that's why they're having a separate Android event, because this will be RTM. This will be when this thing is finalized. Like the next version of Android is going to land, 9 months after the previous one, not a year. So it's basically forward about a quarter. Now, this also allows them to focus heavily on AI. And if you look at their session schedules, there's Android stuff in there, of course. I mean, Android's a big platform for them, but it's like Build. It is all AI. It's AI. Mm-hmm. It's AI. So this makes me wonder, what about Surface, right? Like last year, Microsoft announced Copilot plus PC the day before Build, but at their campus, and they announced 2 new Surface devices, the first 2 Snapdragon X-based computers.
And these are post-Panos devices.
Yep. Yeah.
I think it's kind of a big deal.
Yeah. I mean, maybe we need like a Windows Copilot plus PC something event. I don't know. So we'll see. I don't know. Anyway.
It'd be nice if they would tell us.
I wish I had a secret to tell you. I do not. But I'm waiting. I'm going to Build. There is a pre-show thing that night, and it's not like this. It's not like a Copilot plus PC like announcement or anything. It's like a, nothing. It's like the type of thing they usually have. So I don't know.
Yeah, and like I said, a year ago this is Copilot PC announcement. Like, it makes sense. This is about the time to come out and say, hey,
here's V2 or
here comes the next hardware.
Right.
And I'm chomping at the bit to get into the Qualcomm chip stack, but I'm not going to buy the old chip. I want the new one. Where's the new one? Yeah,
so it's been a steady stream of more of the same chipset, like lower end versions, fewer cores, hitting that, like lowering the price point, which by the way is important. I'm not dumping on it, but like people like us are like, okay, but where's the good stuff? Like I want, where's the one with the new GPU or whatever, right? Like we want to see this stuff.
Give me to 100 tops.
Yeah, there are a lot of rumors around this. I've been hearing September. I just saw something that I think is very much related, which is that Qualcomm is going to ship the next gen Snapdragon 4 phones in September, which aligns to what I've heard for the PC chip. And that makes sense because those will be based on the same underlying chips. So maybe that is the plan. We shall see.
Not in the build time frame. They're not on a 1 year cadence, but then neither is Intel.
So. And the problem is like when you hit like a 1 year anniversary, like we're about to, and the next gen is not happening for another, whatever that is,
6 months. Yeah.
It's not a lot of excitement in this world right now. You know what I'm saying? No. So it's like, I kind of wish there was something that they could announce. Even if it was something, well, not even if, I mean, this would be not great for Qualcomm, but like there are these rumors about MediaTek and or NVIDIA and or other companies maybe getting into the Windows on ARM chip space, which would bring competition to this part of the market, but also require these companies to kind of play off each other. And, maybe NVIDIA would come out the gate with really good graphics or whatever, like as you would expect of that company. So I'd like to see something like that too, but I don't know.
If wishes were fishes, we'd all be riding bicycles.
Really
and I still have the sense that all of those are different variations of the Snapdragon are really them trying to increase yield.
Interesting. Yeah.
They're
bidding more aggressively, you think?
Well, you got to get up to 80, 90% if you're going to make some money, right? So they find a way to trim the chip to make it usable.
Right.
And you had vendors looking for a less expensive chip anyway. Like there's a market and you've made poor quality chips, so why not?
Perfect. Sell them to the Chinese. That's what I...
Well, and that should be the big thing on the big thing on the V2 is revising the design so that it prints more reliably, right? Like I think it's a huge part of the TSMC story is their engineers changing the design so that those very high density chips actually come out more reliable. And it takes a few iterations to get there.
Right.
Yep.
All right, let's take a little time out and we will come back with more excitement. I just want to give Microsoft time to get its quarterly results out before the show's over. I don't think that's going to actually happen.
You
might have to save those earnings for next week.
They're out. Oh no, sorry. It says get. Sorry.
Get ready.
It says
They're
get notification.
Wait close, right? So that's 20 minutes off, and then there's usually a delay after that. And Satya's got to get his hair did and all that.
More of a shine.
All polished up. Yeah,
all polished up. Since we mentioned the club, I thought I'd just throw in a little a little pleading, a little begging to get you to join Club Twit because we're doing some great stuff in there. Let me just tell you what you get. It's first of all, it's only $7 a month, and if you sign up today, you will be grandfathered in at that price, indefinite, forever. Even if we have a price increase. And I have to say, the way the economy's going, we might have to do a price increase at some point this year. We want to grandfather you in. People did say, we really want that yearly commitment. And personally, I was the one fighting against it because I felt like, well, now I'm stuck here for another year, but all right, I want to do it. So we brought back the yearly plan, $84 for a year, $7 a month. What do you get? You get ad-free versions of all the shows. I think that's reason enough, but you also get access to our Club Twit Discord, which is a great hang. Not everybody's in there. You don't have to join, certainly, but enough. I would say 10,000 maybe. I don't know. Patrick knows how many people are in the club right now. And we do a lot more in the club than just get together and chat. There's chatting all the time because it's a social group, but we also do special shows in there. For instance, Friday, 1 p.m. Pacific, 4 p.m. Eastern. Chris Marquardt will do his monthly photo roundup. We do a review, give you a new assignment, talk about the latest photography news. We also have Micah's Crafting Corner coming up on the 14th next week. Or is that 2 weeks? I think it's 2 weeks from now. That's at 6 p.m. on Wednesday. He does it every month. And it's just a chance to get together with Micah. And he's doing some crafts. You could do your crafts. Stacy's Book Club is the same day. Not the same time. And actually, that's that afternoon. We're going to do her book pick of the month. Your book pick, I guess. She gives you 3 and people vote on them. And I really like the one we're doing this month. The Word for World is Forest from Ursula K. Le Guin. It's a novella, so it's a pretty easy read. So if you haven't picked it up yet, get it now. There's a great audio book version, but you could also read it in paperback or hardcover. A very good, I thought, a very interesting story. So we'll be talking about that. As I mentioned, we're going to start covering keynotes in the club only. This is to avoid takedowns and strikes against our YouTube and Twitch channels. They haven't come from Microsoft, let's be honest. They're coming from Apple. But, well, why not? So we're going to do build in the Discord. That's, as I mentioned, Monday, May 19th, 9 a.m. Pacific. We're going to do the next day Google I.O. in the Discord. That's 10 a.m. Pacific on the May 20th. Oh, in between then, a little break on Friday, May 23rd, the GizWiz, Dick DiBartolo stopped by. I want to help him celebrate 2,000 episodes. I'll break out all the old jingles. And we've got some great memories for that. That'll be a lot of fun. Our AI users group is always the 4th Friday of the month, May 23rd this month. Last week we did it, and it was really fun. Anthony showed how he's making all those cool moral panic videos we use on intelligent machines. Lots of fun. If you're interested in AI, I might show how I use Claude Code. I think this next coming episode is pretty cool. And then on the 9th of June, WWDC, 10 a.m. And we are going to do the keynote and the State of the Union. Micah and I will do that. That's just part of all the fun you get in Club Twit. $7 a month. I think it's for, 11 shows a week? All the extras. There are 12,554 club members. But how many are in the, Patrick, are in the Discord or members of the Discord? I think it's less than that. Not everybody goes in there. Anyway, we'd like to have you in the club. Please, twit.tv/clubtwit. If you're not already a member, join the fun. Scooter X, just getting around to we put in links as the show goes on, by the way. Kev Brewer does it, Scooter X, so you can follow along. There we go. 7,456 people in the Discord from the club. Please join us. Please. Twit.tv/clubtwit. Join today or that kitten will get a spanking. Back to Windows Weekly. And Paul Thurrott, did I mute you? No, I did not. You may be muted yourself.
I muted myself.
You may take it away, sir.
So I didn't write about this, but there's a report in the Wall Street Journal about the relationship between Microsoft and OpenAI, which is mostly that what I call duh and or hello. Like, I mean, it's like all very obvious, but there's some interesting stuff in here because, the story's fascinating. This will generate a new round of books about Microsoft, I think, in the near future, where, they see this up and coming company. Kevin Scott gets that relationship going. They invest $1 billion. They invest another $10 billion.
Yeah,
but
I didn't think they thought it was that important. I think Kevin Scott was just looking for workloads for Azure, and it was an opportune moment.
It was a customer almost, right? Just a new customer.
It worked out so well, except it kind of didn't also, right? There's some little details in here that are kind of interesting because anyone could probably step through most of the history, but this author claims that there was a period of time at the height of this relationship where Satya Nadella, excuse me, a little dry here. Satya Nadella, the CEO of Microsoft, and Sam Altman, the CEO for most of this of OpenAI, would text each other all day long, 5 or 6 times a row, like little girls. And
what's next? What's going on, Sam? What you doing now?
What are you wearing today? Are you wearing besties? So, but Sam Altman would actually take screenshots of these chats and post them to the internal Slack at OpenAI just to speed things along. Yeah, it's just bizarre, right? So Microsoft does the big reveal of their work with, what at the time was Bing AI, but like Copilot, right? And at the end of that year, when Sam Altman was briefly ousted from OpenAI,
yes, Dark Satya.
This is referred to internally as the blip. The blip. That's quite a blip.
That's good.
But not surprisingly, Nadella immediately said, "Look, we need an insurance policy here. This can't happen. Like this is," and some of the stuff they had said publicly is actually really fascinating. If you go back to this time, Microsoft was like, "We'll just hire all of you. Like, come on, come here." So OpenAI I don't think they would have disappeared, but most of those people, I think, would have followed Sam Altman.
Quite possibly.
And it turns out that's a successful strategy because it's what Microsoft did a little bit later with Inflection and Mustafa Suleyman, right? The guy who now runs the Microsoft AI org. Apparently, it was that month. So this is November 2023, where Sam Altman's out, and they're like, "All right, what, like, where can we go?" And his top choice at that point was Mustafa Suleyman, right? Like, what can we do? And they started talking, and then I don't remember the timing. I feel like it might have been March, maybe the next year, but whenever it was last year, they hired him out of the blue.
You're exactly right.
$650 million they paid for him.
Right. Well, because you're not buying the company, sort of, but you're
getting the guy, one of the three founders. Yeah.
And most of the employees, like that company
basically disassembled. Yeah. It was an acqui-hire.
Yeah. The second of two major examples of this kind of thing with Microsoft in the past 3-4 years, like it's kind of bizarre. Like that itself is really kind of crazy. Now, this report claims that one of the first things that these guys ran into from Inflection when they got to Microsoft was like, actually it's gonna take a while. Turns out what these guys are doing is really good, and it's gonna be hard to duplicate this. And we had rumors, I would say in the intervening year, every once in a while, like, Microsoft's models are getting close. Oh, Microsoft's models might be just as good as OpenAI's. And by the time they had that AI event, I guess it was early April, tied to the Microsoft 50th anniversary. My question was, are they going to talk about that? And they never talked about that.
Yeah.
They still rely on OpenAI, obviously, to some degree. But the other big break was, of course, when OpenAI keeps making demands of Microsoft. We need more. We need more. We need more. Mm-hmm. One of the things I'll be looking for in the earnings today is what Microsoft says about the cost of AI and the CapEx cost. It's been roughly $20 billion a quarter. Are we going to see a scaling back of that this soon or not? Maybe it's going to happen eventually. There are reports Microsoft has never acknowledged where they were in early agreements to build up capacity in whatever parts of the world at whatever data centers and have just walked away from those deals. They don't need that capacity anymore. Mm-hmm. But the big problem to me here, and by the way, I don't know if this is in the report, but I also have something put aside that part of Microsoft's agreement with OpenAI allows them to block this corporate restructuring that OpenAI is trying to undergo where they become a for-profit company. I'm not saying they're going to. In fact, I don't know that anyone is saying that, but apparently they have the power to prevent that from happening, which would be a weird alignment with Elon Musk when you think about it. But I don't. It's probably not going to happen. But the issue there, though, and the reason you might want to think about that is that these two companies are the ultimate example of competitors and partners, right? They're the co-opetition thing. And in this article, they have some cool graphs, some good graphs. And one of them shows this is something I think it came out with the Google antitrust remedy hearings, where Google has given figures for how good they're doing or how well they're doing with Gemini. And depending on how you look at this, it's really, really good or really bad, but they're like half an OpenAI maybe from a usage perspective. But the thing you have to remember about Google is they're giving Gemini AI Advanced away to basically everybody. So if you buy like a Pixel phone, you get it for a year. If you buy like Chromebook Plus, you get it for a year, whatever it is. So that stuff might run into a wall in the near term. But OpenAI's numbers are off the charts, like really good. They're just upward, like a rocket trajectory. And Microsoft's Copilot numbers are the Copilot, right? The AI chatbot thing. I've never grown. Like they're 20 million compared to 300 million monthly average users or weekly, whatever the number is. And that's a big problem.
That seems to be true of most other models. Like my debate here is OpenAI that good, or do they have the brand recognition?
Yeah, I think it's a little bit of the first one and a lot of the last one for sure. I don't know how. I don't know. Well, there must be objective opinions about this from people who actually use these things. But the problem is,
yeah, I don't know how objective they are, brother. Like
I'm
always asking folks, what are they using and why are they using it? And they can never put a finger down on
because it moves so fast.
Right now.
It changes. It does this. Like Brad this morning to me said, "Oh, I've been like addicted to this cursor AI thing," and I was like, "Okay, but yeah, it's great."
But cursor AI has been out for months. Like, I think there's an illusion that we're moving fast, and it's OpenAI that's creating that illusion with constant announcements. I feel like the end game here is pretty obvious, which is that these things will all be roughly in the same place at some point, right? And that it is going to come down to marketing and partnerships and deals to get into different places. And very effective FUD, right? Like,
that's marketing. That's marketing. Yes. So OpenAI is clearly winning the race right now, and for Microsoft, it's a little bit awkward because they've taken OpenAI products. This is a little harsh, but it kind of rebranded them as Copilot products. They build on top of it for sure. Right? Mm-hmm. They talk about this secret sauce they have, and they do extra stuff, and they have all the Microsoft 365 tie-in stuff, which is great and very good for them and for corporate customers, etc. But they do things like give away things that OpenAI charges for, and none of this has moved the needle. And I think this is in the Microsoft space, we're very happy with the fact that Microsoft finally has a good brand for something. Like Microsoft is horrible at branding.
Yeah, thanks GitHub,
Yeah, I mean, whatever, but they ran with it, right? Like they did that with Surface, right? Surface was this kind of stupid thing that nobody wanted. It was expensive, and they moved it into something else that's less expensive and stupid. Doesn't matter. But Surface is a good brand. It was, Skype was a good brand. Xbox is a good brand. I mean,
but they also overutilize them. Like they do sully the brand in the sense that they use the name everywhere.
This is the company that named everything they were making Windows something, including something called Windows Media Player for Mac, which you had to know no one would want. I mean, think. Yeah. So it's yes. This is what happens when you can't do something right your entire life, and when you get it right, you just beat it to death. Mm-hmm. But it doesn't seem to be working, and I think this is not an epiphany. I mean, this is obvious. These two companies are going to it's going to be ugly. You know what I mean? Like this ends badly. So
I mean, you hope that clearly the press is for Microsoft to have a good enough model that you're simply not dependent on OpenAI. I don't know that that's come true yet, but I also don't know that we have a good assessment strategy anyway.
Right. Right.
I think so much of this stuff is perception of the model, not reality of the model.
I think you're right.
It turns out to be what the product is every time.
So this is true of anything, but AI, it's the easiest thing to try. So someone will use one chatbot and ask it some questions like, oh, look at this thing. It's terrible. It's the worst. And then they move on to something else. And maybe they get a good answer from someone else and they use it for a little while and they're like, oh, this is good. And it's like, well, what about that other thing? And like, oh, that's garbage. Like, well, when did you use it? It was like 36 hours ago. That's way too much time. You don't have an opinion anymore. Like these things have been improving so fast.
Yeah. Well, no, I'm not convinced that they are. I believe that is part of the hype process.
Okay. That's fair enough.
Right? Because it's really hard to measure improvement.
That's right. So I don't know. Maybe they'll, I'm sure someone has already ported ChatGPT to the Commodore 64 or whatever. I don't know.
I played Doom on my dishwasher last month. So yeah.
I love it. That's good. For some reason, every story today has ties to this Google antitrust case, which was not actually part of the show notes, but Motorola, was it last week? Recently announced their new phones, which normally I wouldn't pay too much attention to, but the Razr phones are kind of cool. There's a little compact style, flip phone.
The original cool phone.
Yeah. But now in smartphone form, it's cool.
I love the Moto X's too. When Google first bought them, they were excellent.
Yeah, they used to do like the wood on the outside and you had all these different.
Yeah, remember that? Yeah.
Yeah, it was fun. Like I had a bamboo cover like for one.
So they make a flip now. That's kind of interesting.
They're cool. So, but the reason I wrote about this particular thing is they have partnered with four different companies for the AI features in their phone. And this came out during...
That's what Apple should have done.
Yeah. Well, they will. It is what Apple's going to do, by the way. So, but for now, Perplexity has been trying to get on phones for the past couple of years, and Google has been blocking this, right? So Google,
I didn't know that, really.
Yeah, so this came out during the antitrust remedy hearing. So Google, which is trying to complain to the court that we should just be allowed to do what we've always done, is doing what they've always done in search, but they're doing it with AI. So what they want is for all of the phone makers to bundle Gemini, not to bundle OpenAI or Perplexity or Anthropic or whatever else. And they've been successful. But because this court
in
case,
the midst of an antitrust lawsuit
for that exact
for
thing.
bundling.
Exactly. No, I know. It's, pot, kettle, black, or as you know, the old Greg Kinnear joke, it's like riding a bike. It's easy to fall into this behavior, right?
Yeah.
But now this stuff is out in the public. And so Motorola announces these new phones. They have some variety of AI features, some of which seem kind of interesting, some of which are like whatever. But they've been very specific mostly about which AIs they're using for which features. So they've partnered with Google, Meta, Microsoft, and Perplexity, and they're using them in different ways. These will be the first phones that actually allow you to use Perplexity as a chatbot on a phone that's built in, like it's going to be built in. It's going to be able to replace search.
This is great. I'm so excited.
Yeah, it's really interesting.
That's what I do on the desktop now.
Well, and congrats to Moto for actually being clever about the implementation.
Yeah. So the reason this is good, like this, what this is a good example of something that's hard to prove to people otherwise, right? So when you think about antitrust, it could be Microsoft with IE, and they're like, what are you complaining about? They made browsers free. That's a good thing. Or Google search is the best. Like, who cares if they're, they do special deals with all these companies. It's the only choice and blah, 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 whatever. Like, who cares? And it's like, well, who cares is like, when you see what happens when you don't allow that, this is like innovation occurs. Now, it doesn't mean every one of these is good. It doesn't mean any of them are good. It just means all of a sudden, when you are given choices, things can happen. And those things that can happen might not be the things that dominant company would ever want to happen, not just because it's not their product, but because it just from a business standpoint, it doesn't make sense.
No, you have innovator's dilemma. Like, why would I disrupt my search market, which is actually the ad space I sell around your search, because you're going to use a chat bot instead. And I don't know where to put the ads.
That's why they sat on AI, because they designed or invented or whatever a lot of this stuff years ago, and we're like, ooh, this works really good, and it also makes Google search way less viable. So they sat on it. So companies that aren't trying to protect a dominant product don't sit on it. They go forward. So anyway, again, I want to be super clear. I'm not saying any of this is any good, but I am saying some of it looks pretty good. like this seems pretty good. And the overall kind of strategy or whatever it is, and they're doing a manual version of this orchestrator thing that I've been talking about forever, which is we have these features we want to do. We have all these AIs we could use. What if we use this for this and this for this and this for this? Because those are the things that are good for those things.
Sounds like something Apple should have done about a year ago.
And it sounds like something Apple's going to do about 2 years from now. So 100%. I mean, yeah, they'll get there, and when they do it, they'll do it in that Apple way, and it will be, it'll be great. Maybe, I don't know.
It'll be shiny.
It will be shiny, and then we'll all buy new iPhones iPhones. It will be fun. So the Duolingo thing, man, God, these guys. I use Duolingo every day. I just surpassed like a 2-year streak.
Congratulations.
I hate this app so much. I hate it. I hate it.
Wait a minute. Well,
I hate it.
You hate it now because you're using AI? Is that why you hate it?
No, I just want to be clear about this thing. I pay for it. I use it every day. It's like a taskmaster.
Yeah.
It's like I'm in that boat going across the ocean, and he's like,
have you tried the competitors like Babbel? I mean,
yep. And I just keep going back like an idiot to this thing. And here's what happens.
Duolingo is the first, really.
Yeah, it's the big one. I get stuck in this race. It's always someone named Susan, or like some woman who's studying English maybe, and she lives in Spain, and she's like somehow got 30,000 points in one day when it's only possible to get maybe 2,000. And it's like you just find yourself like every day going, it makes me insane. But I will say, this app, there was a time when I finished the lessons they had for Spanish and French, and then went back and I think I did French the second time or something. I don't remember. Now, I will not live long enough to finish anything they do because there's so much content there now.
Right.
They just added a bunch of stuff.
And that's the thing. So the other day, this blows my mind. The CEO of this company announced internally that they're going to get rid of all of their contractors and replace them with AI. And they're like, no, don't worry. Don't worry. We're not getting rid of any of you guys. You guys are important, but we are going to teach you how to use AI to get rid of the repetitive stuff and make your lives easier and all that stuff. And yeah, probably in 6 years, we're going to get rid of you too. But the point is, for now, you have nothing to worry about. But he uses this industry language. I read this to my wife just to kind of see how this read to her, and he said, one of the best decisions we made recently was replacing a slow manual content creation process with one powered by AI. And then you hear the record scratch and you're like, what does that mean? You mean you got rid of people? A slow manual content creation process? This is the thing where I said, remember, like, I can make graphics for my website using AI. I can say, give me 4 images of this thing. If one of them is perfect, I'll use it. If one of them's close, I'll say, this is pretty good, but make it a little different. And then it gives me 4 more, and it just doesn't cost me a cent. And I have an image. But I also have a friend, one of my best friend's wives, who's a graphic artist. And if I went to her and I said, make me 4 high quality photographic quality images of this thing that I'm going to describe to you with my mouth. Do it in 10 seconds. And then I'm going to tell you to correct one of them and give me 4 more. Can you do that? And she'd be like, what are you talking about? I can't do that. I'm like,
I'll
right.
see you in a month.
She is the slow manual content creation process that the guy from Duolingo just mentioned. It's impossible. The other thing he said, this is the other AI term, he said it would take us decades to scale our content to more learners. Scale. That's good. Anyway, they're getting rid of people is the message. Here's the problem with this. Okay. He told employees this. They posted this letter, they meaning Duolingo, the company, not like a leaker, to LinkedIn like they were proud of it. And then one day later, they announced 148 new language courses, all of them created with AI. You're like, wow. And they literally referenced this scale comment. It said, our first 100 courses took 12 years to create. And now in about a year, we were able to create and launch almost 150 new courses. All right.
Right now, this is just a question of quality. It's a course, but is it good?
Here's the problem. Yeah, probably it's just as good.
It's probably just as good.
Because they stole the content that was created by humans, ingested it, and now
this reminds me, like we've all the notion that like some number of monkeys given some number of years could create Shakespeare is of course nonsense, but everyone's familiar with that. Everyone is likewise familiar with the fact that there are only a certain number of notes in the world. And so that if you threw them into a blender, you would come up with Stairway to Heaven, which actually, by the way, is the way they made that song. But anyway, whatever the works of the Beatles.
There are currently many monkeys working on recreating Shakespeare at monkeys.zip. I own one of them and he's doing
He's doing a great job. Well, you know what? Let me tell you something. That monkey doesn't scale and slow content creation. That's all I'm saying. Anyway.
Nice.
There's no doubt that AI trained on the music of the world will create music that we like. It will be similar. It will be nearly identical in some cases.
Yeah. Wonder why.
But of course they're going to be able to, this is like, I said this about Call of Duty. Richard has been talking about this notion of using AI to create maps or open world environments where there's like an infinite number of quests and new characters and new things happening. And I think about it in terms of Call of Duty. And it's like, look, we have this body of work that dates back 20 years plus now. We know what multiplayer maps resonated with people. Feed it into the AI and say, make more of these. Yeah. And I got to tell you, the problem with this is, as a user of this or a gamer, I guess, I hear that and I think, oh God, please do that. Because some of the maps that humans create are garbage and they take a long time, they don't scale. And then, a new Call of Duty comes out and you're like, all right, hooray, let's see what they got. And you're like, oh, 6 maps. That's all you got? Why can't Call of Duty launch with 150 maps? It will, So this is outrageous. All right. This freaks me out. This is horrible. And I hate
it's the way of the world. I mean,
it's absolutely the way everything's going to go.
You're probably the people who made, horseless carriages.
Yeah.
Are probably, for a long time. In fact, there was a great blog post that said the original automobiles, steam automobiles, were designed to look exactly like carriages.
Of course. Just like all of Apple's UIs were meant to look like a felt, cover, game thing or whatever. And it's like, this is how people make transitions.
At some point, the buggy whip manufacturers are going to have to find a new thing to make.
Right.
It's sad. It's bad. It's terrible, but it's the way of the world.
Let me ask you this though. Why do you hate horses so much? Like, what's the,
have you ever had a horse?
Yeah, yes, that thing could kill you by twitching its tail. It doesn't make any sense.
They're expensive. They poop everywhere.
They're mean. They have
their
own ideas.
But even if you have a sweet horse, it's not as easy as the thing in your garage right now.
That's right. It took a while to get there, but
it did.
I don't think anyone's aiming to go back.
It's challenging. Look, nobody should lose their job ever. That's for so many of us. That's not just our
we don't
self-worth. It's how we live.
Yeah, nobody thinks about this. Like, so probably because it's a hard problem. I mean, when all the Appalachian jobs from coal and steel and whatever else were going away, it's like, well, what are we going to do? Like, my family has been doing this for generations. I have kids and a family and a house and whatever. And I'm living in a place where now there's fracking occurring or whatever it is. And it's like, well, you should learn how to, write software code. Yeah, no, my life has prepared me for that path. And then, 2 seconds later, AI comes along. You're like, well, now what am I going to do?
Thing we told you.
Yeah, I don't know. How do you feel about building data centers? I mean, could you do that? Yeah, I don't know. There's no good answers here, but this Duolingo thing freaks me out because one of the things I'm going to do after I get off this show is go open up my app and curse to myself, and maybe Copilot can get rid of that later, and use this app that I hate so much. But it's also kind of inevitable,
Yeah.
It's brutal.
It's hard. It's really hard.
It is hard.
I don't know what the answer is. Yeah.
No, I'm right. The problem, you know what? There is no answer. That's the problem. The net goal here is that the impact of any technology will be positive in the long run for most, if not all people. It doesn't always happen, but that's the goal. There's always going to be those short-term problems that no one wants to think about. Because there is a way we're doing things now, and those jobs are going to go away. It happens every time. Mm-hmm. Some of the jobs are ridiculous. I always use the example of like stagecoach driver, or the woman in the tiny skirt walking around with the tray selling cigarettes and tea and stuff in the back of a plane. We don't see that anymore. Maybe in Asia. I don't know. But we don't see that anymore. It's a stupid job. That shouldn't exist. And it doesn't mean I wanted to take it away from the woman whose job that was. That's not the point. But we look at it now from the future and we say, oh, I can't believe we did that. But we did.
Meanwhile, my monkey is trying to recreate Shakespeare.
How's it going? Not a single ear out of this guy.
We just got all of the 4-letter words in Shakespeare.
Oh, that's
my monkey's pretty good. Let me see. Here's a sentence he wrote: "I utter a coat of trees to sate house wage, while Ray Aseth have been axed."
That's close.
Okay,
that
not
reads
the
like an insider blog post, by which I mean poorly.
Look, he made up canvas, revenue, liking, assessed, strange, and accuse. Astrea is
a good one.
Yeah, astray. It's a word.
I'm not even sure that's true, but it's okay. Sorrier is a tough one on the tongue.
Sorrier. Yeah. The word sorrier appears in Shakespeare one time.
Wow.
The monkeys have written it 17 times. It was first written by Rappo Criskel 4 weeks ago, but mine did it as well. Some of the monkeys are not working super hard.
Well, yes.
Some of them are working very hard.
Those are the contractors. AI is coming for you, buddy.
Some are typing with their feet.
It's a banana. See you later.
But see, this is my monkey. He has earned many things, including a gold typewriter.
I like that he has a jaunty little hat.
Yeah, he earned that cowboy hat.
I also like that somebody cut the corners off of his sandwich.
Yeah, nice. He also earned that. Yeah.
He doesn't have... The typing style is a little odd.
It's random.
Is he wearing mittens?
Yeah, he's monkey paws. Little monkey paws.
Oh, boy.
Anyway, that's my monkey. Would you like to touch my monkey?
Wow. And now HR's on the phone. So, what's that from? That's Mike Myers, right?
Mike Myers.
Touch the monkey.
Now is the time on Sprockets when we dance.
Yeah. This is the time when we dance.
Saturday Night Live. Yep.
So we have an HR filter alongside the profanity filter.
We need that. I need that.
I need the Mike Myers filter.
Oh, God.
Elbows up.
Yeah. This is just like This Week in Apple Intelligence at this point. Just more reorgs over there. It looks like what Apple is finally doing is orging AI the way they've orged everything in the company, which is very different from the way like Microsoft or probably Google does things, which is, in Microsoft, you have like a Windows team, right? In Apple, they actually they don't do that. They don't do it per product. They have these cross-product teams. And it's part of the reason they're able to make these experiences that work across the different platforms, right? So they might have like a group that's working on, I don't know what that makes, well, some AI thing or whatever, right? And you're like, okay, well, where can we use this? And it's like, well, iPhone, iPad, Mac, Apple Watch or something, whatever it might be. So they just continue reorging, and God love them. I don't know. They'll get there. We have a lot of...
It speaks to how anomalous the Apple Intelligence announcement was, that they didn't already have a team in place. That
Yes.
They hadn't built anything.
All right, so Microsoft earnings are out, so I'm going to skip the rest of this AI nonsense.
They are. Oh, boy.
Here we go.
We waited long enough. Only 13 minutes after close.
Yeah. Revenue, like I said, less than 90 billion. Less than 90 billion, which is what Google had. Revenue was $70.1 billion, up 13%, double digits.
Wow.
Net income, almost 26 billion, up 18%. Again, double digits. I need to go look at their data to get anything like super important out of here. Like I said, the big thing for me is going to be what they're spending on AI and how they address it. If they do, we'll see. Windows OEM and devices revenue increased 3%. That's honestly good for Windows. Content and services from Xbox is up 8%. Search and news advertising revenue, excluding traffic acquisition costs, which means that's not revenues, because revenues, it doesn't matter. Oh, no, that is revenues. I guess
it's just not net profits. Yeah, it's just cost them so much.
So
they didn't make anything.
Yeah, they're probably giving that money away. Microsoft 365 continues to go gangbusters, double digit across commercial and consumer. So it's, as it always is what it looks like to me.
Do they have typically double digit increases every quarter?
Yeah.
That's amazing.
This is low double digit. I mean, low, 10 to 15%, but yes. Yep. Yeah, you shouldn't be able to grow this much when you're this big.
It's amazing. Yeah, I mean, that's the thing. It's 10% of billions. It's not,
of many billions. Yeah.
Many billions.
Almost 30 billion from productivity and business processes. That's Microsoft 365. Intelligent Cloud, which is Azure, was almost 27 billion. That one's up 21%, by the way.
That's crazy.
Microsoft 365 part was up 10%.
Because the AI wave was about, hey, our cloud growth is slowing. This is a perfect time to jump on another horse to keep the numbers high.
Yep.
So for people like me, it's of course personal computing, and that's a smaller increase, 6%, but still up.
At least it's increasing. I mean, the smallest part of the company, it's 13.4 billion.
Isn't that funny? That's the smallest part of Microsoft.
The part that used
Windows.
to be Microsoft. Yeah. Gaming revenue overall up 5% year over year. Hardware revenue declined again 6%. By the way, that was probably double digits before, so that might be evening out finally. I guess you bottom out at some point. And that's most of what I can tell you right now, because I need to.
Nearly 10 billion in stock buybacks.
Wow.
Remember when they were spending all that money on building new data centers?
Mm-hmm. Dividends and share repurchases, 9.7 billion in one quarter.
Yeah, I'll have to compare that to. Yeah. I think we talked about this last week, but I went back and looked at the amount of money Microsoft had earned in a fiscal year right after their antitrust ruling in the United States, and then looked at 1 quarter of earnings from Google, Apple, Microsoft, and Amazon. And it's an order of magnitude difference, the size of these companies today. They're not comparable. This is completely different. $70 billion in the scope of big tech will put them in third place, I guess, behind Amazon, fourth place. Sorry. It will be Amazon, Apple, Google, and then Microsoft from a revenue scale. So fourth biggest company by revenue this quarter, approximately 80 times the size it was. No, not by margin, I guess we could look at net income and kind of see where that falls. But this is a humongous company.
Yeah.
and making buckets
and
of
successful.
Stupid big company. Yeah. But again,
money. How many layoffs do they have in that quarter?
That's the thing. The trick's going to be in the nuance, and the nuance is going to come a little bit in the post earnings conference call that doesn't start for another 45 minutes, I think. And, and then the 10Q filing. So I can't do that now. Obviously, I'm on a podcast, but I'll look through that stuff. It's, we'll see what I can, if anything I can pull out of this, but
next week, earnings, learnings.
Mm-hmm.
All right.
And it'll only be 5 a.m. when I'm on.
What time is it? Yeah, I don't want to take up too much time. There's a bunch of other stuff in AI. This is not a big learning or of any kind, but like every week when I put these show notes together, it's like AI. It's like, geez, Louise. So I just pulled two, maybe three of these things that I think are important because this is just appearing everywhere, right? So
and all of
Google doing AI overviews in YouTube, Spotify using AI to make playlists, Adobe using AI, obviously in their models, but now adding third-party model support. DuckDuckGo has a thing called Duck AI, which nobody knows about, which supports real-time switching between different models. So you don't have to have a new conversation.
That's what Perplexity does now. They, instead of giving you all the models to choose from manually, it says, we'll pick the best model.
Yeah, which is what people want.
Yeah.
And then one of the big
how do
ones,
they measure best?
Well, I don't know. And maybe it's cheapest from maybe best means
right,
less.
exactly. Best for them, maybe.
Results are still excellent.
Yeah.
I do kind of miss the ability to say, I want to use Gemini for this. Or, yeah, we get a payoff from.
Notebook LM, which kind of came out of nowhere about a year and a half ago, just a creepy AI-generated podcast with the two hosts, John Lee talking back and forth with each other, has been updated continually since that point. They just released, they have something called that feature is called Audio Overviews. That thing now supports over 50 languages.
Wow.
So, for example, and Spotify, so the Spotify AI playlist, I'm mixing things up. Do I mention, I don't even mention Pocket Cast. So Pocket Cast released AI generated podcast transcripts for those podcasts that don't have their own transcripts, right? This is something Apple added about a year ago to Apple Podcasts, but only on Apple devices, right? So Pocket Cast is cross-platform. And so I looked at that today. And yeah, guess what? It's great. You know what I mean? Of course it is. Of course it is. And this is what's happening. It's crazy. So now what you can do is write something or steal something. Don't write it. Why would you write something? AI will write it. Get something written, feed it into Notebook LM, create an audio overview, which is a podcast. Translate it into 50 different languages. Then feed that into Pocket Cast and let it make an audio, a transcript of it.
It makes you wonder, why are we going to all the trouble?
Should be the original source material. That's how you know that it works. Done.
Round trips.
Nailed it. But not really.
I honestly still believe that this is good for podcasting. This isn't bad. This is good for understanding content.
Yep.
But this isn't going to eliminate human crafted stuff. In fact, I think will make it more valuable because it's going to be more costly to do. It's going to take more energy. And if it's better, it'll be more valuable.
Anyone who's ever gone to a farmer's market or bazaar or whatever it is, and you can buy homemade goods, whatever they are. Like here, they make these intricate baskets. These people toil away at this for days. And then it's like, here you go, 20 pesos. It costs like 25, nothing. And they spent half their life on it. You know what I mean? Like those types of things. It could be anything. It could be a drawing. Like you'll see people.
They get more valuable.
Yeah. Those things will become more of those will be the things people save. Those will be like the keepsakes.
Our
things
son studied German in high school. He could be doing Duolingo, but instead he pays a tutor couple hours a week.
What's wrong with this guy? No,
because it's better.
Of course, it's better.
It's much more expensive. So for people who want a cheap, simple thing, Duolingo's fine. But
that's right.
That's
for the masses.
If you're willing
and that's
to pay,
right. So my wife does Duolingo, but she also does it's like a Zoom based thing.
Yeah,
with a human being.
If you go out in Mexico City and you go to your taco bar and you talk with the guys, you're going to get a better.
Oh my God, yes. Plus, you learn all the slang and how to swear. Yeah. So now when someone cuts me off, I'm like, tómalo.
My daughter lived for a year in Puebla. She came back and said, now you speak Spanish. She said, well, I do.
No, I swear in Spanish.
I have to be very careful because when I say things, people get upset because I speak a very colloquial Mexican Spanish
Right.
that is pretty profane.
Yeah. The U.S. equivalent is you're from Boston.
Yeah. Hey, what are you doing?
You're like you're a Mex hole, as we call them. Yeah. Yeah.
But she's fluent, right? In a real world way.
Right.
That
Fluent and fluid.
No AI is ever going to teach you that, right?
Right.
I've a Polish friend who learned English from an English person, and so she speaks English
With a beautiful accent, I bet.
with an English accent.
Yeah. 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 So I think I don't think AI is a bad thing. I think it.
No, I don't either.
And in some ways, it makes human created podcasts, I'm hoping, more valuable. Right. We'll see.
I say that, right. I say this all the time, but like, I keep talking about AI. In my crowd, there's a lot of convincing that has to occur. They're still not sold on this. They're very,
people are scared, and rightly so. People are scared.
But I'm always like, no, you don't understand. Like, if you're rejecting this at this point, you're just not paying attention. You got to get in. You got to get in there. Blah blah blah.
It's what's happening.
And then it's like, well, how do you use AI? And I'm like, oh, I don't use AI. What do you mean? That's ridiculous. No, I mean, but
before the show, if we have time, before Intelligent Machines, last week on Intelligent Machines, we had a good friend of mine, Harper Reed, talk about how he uses Claude Code to code. I played with it in the intervening week. I will show you what Claude did.
Okay.
It's mind blowing. I won't do it in your show.
It's funny the way you say that. You're like, what have you done?
What have you done? What you did is in seconds took what took me months to code.
Well, so my experience. So that's the one area where I have used it. And if you think about it, writing software code, writing text. I mean, what's the difference really? You're creating something, whatever. I mean,
it's not exactly carving a long ship by hand.
I mean, the way I write it is, but but okay, fair enough, whatever. But for some reason, I can't make that leap yet. I'm not actively blocking it. I just don't. It never occurs to me, to do that. For example, the transcript from today's call will come out for the Microsoft thing. I'm not going to feed it into AI and be like, summarize this for me. I'm going to read the damn thing. To me, like that's how I do things.
But the secondarily, after you read it, you might do that, and I bet you'll get some interesting points out of it.
Someone on Friday asked me a question. I do like a weekly column thing about like trusting AI, and his opinion was that like we're never going to be able to trust AI. And I said the problem is we already do trust AI, so you don't. I get it, but you're the exception.
Or you think you don't, while still actually trusting.
When you're in fact using it and you just don't realize it. So when I explicitly use, I have what I would consider. It's not a danger sign, but it's something just to be mindful of. AI has been so successful for me with the coding stuff. I don't use it to like write giant blocks of code or anything. Like I write code and then I'm like, could you improve this? Could you do this? Whatever. And what happens is that causes you to trust it. And that trust makes you a little bit blind to when it screws up.
That's
right?
true.
So I can't, there's no way I can demonstrate this here, but imagine a giant block of code. Could you make this more efficient, more concise, whatever? And it returns a single line of code. And if I'm being perfectly honest with you, and I try, I would, I know for a fact, I would never write that code ever. Mm-hmm. Even being apprised of it now, I don't like it. It doesn't read right to me. Yeah. But I test it. I know what the outcome's supposed to be and it works. So I'm like, great. And there it's in my app. Fine. But the thing is, flash forward 2 weeks, I get another similar code, whatever. I'm like, awesome. I'm debugging and blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, I'm not getting the answer. It's 50% wrong. Like 50% of the time it's wrong. It's always going one way when it should be branching somewhere. So now I have to go and look at the code that it generated that I had just trusted and assumed by this point it would just be right. And I have to parse this. And I can't read this very well because it's super terse. And I have to look up how tertiary operators work in C# or whatever.
To say, what does this mean?
That's what you do. You can ask it to say,
you do not ask a thief how he stole your stereo. No, so anyway, what I figured out was it was wrong.
Interesting.
Wrong. One of the branches did the wrong thing. It was just wrong. So I was able to fix it. And this is what people will say. They're like, oh, see, you need a human there. And like, yeah, you do. But the problem is most people who use AI are just normal mainstream human beings. They will trust, already do trust, and they are not going to do this fact checking. Sure. And that is a concern. Until it gets so good it doesn't matter anymore, I guess. I don't know. But
well, it also speaks to a younger generation of developer that are using these tools and doing the two-way street back and forth on, is this correct? What are the side effects? Like you're pretty much pitting one LLM against another.
yeah. Well, that's like a Stephen Wright joke. I bought a humidifier and a dehumidifier, put them in the same room and let them fight it out. All right. So it looks like you're summarizing
I gave Perplexity and ChatGPT the Microsoft results. They came up with fairly similar conclusions.
So what we got? Microsoft is nailing it. Is that what it says?
Demonstrate robust growth across its cloud and productivity segments, driven by strong demand for Azure and Microsoft 365. Significant investments in AI infrastructure underscore the company's commitment to maintaining its competitive edge. So that's kind of bland, isn't it?
This tells me you did this with the press release. Is that what this is?
Yeah.
This is a summary?
Yeah.
Because this reads like something Microsoft would write.
It feels like the press release. Of course, it is. It is OpenAI. Let me see. This is Perplexity.
Right.
And their brain mode says, reinforces its position as a leader in cloud and AI with Azure's AI-driven growth outpacing expectations. Company's diversified revenue streams spanning Office 365, LinkedIn, Dynamics, Windows, Xbox, and advertising provide resilience against market fluctuations. This is actually a little bit better, to be honest. The substantial shareholder returns and robust
really
profit
wordy.
margin. It's wordy. Yeah.
In your head, it's a little, that little strategic partnership with OpenAI bit is interesting because did it get that from the press release?
First refusal rights on new AI for deepening commitment to AI leadership. I don't know.
That's what I'm saying. Like that's
the new OpenAI deal.
I know, but no, it is. You're right. But what I'm saying is, was that in the press release? I can't imagine.
Yeah.
Well, it may. Perplexity does in fact use searches and so forth. So. I didn't do deep research.
It's getting additional information from outside of the. Yeah. Okay. So actually, that's good because that's providing
context.
That's what I mean. It's providing context. Exactly. Mm-hmm. That to me.
Let me ask it. Should I buy Microsoft stock?
Yep. Yes. Would you like to give me access to your checking account, Leo? So
we can handle that for you.
Mm-hmm.
It's telling me this is the deep research, so it's doing that DeepSeek thing where it explains what it's doing while it's doing it.
Oh boy,
this might take a while, so I will let you continue on. But
what is this? This is crazy.
This is kind of the thing that is the latest thing. This tells it what it shows its work basically.
It's like thinking ...
Yeah,
thinking ...
Yeah, I will review Microsoft's valuation metrics, dividend yield, market cap, PE ratio, forward EPS, revenue forecast. Okay, the user is asking. Let me start by looking at the search results.
This is stop. Just right now. I'm like stop.
It put a graph in there.
Stop. I
can't keep up. Look how fast it's going. Holy cow.
Leo, I just want to remind you and everyone else, you asked it a yes or no question.
Yeah.
Should I buy? That's all you asked.
It's showing us how much of data. It's
like Satya Nadella was born in India in 19...
No, here it is. A cautious buy for long-term investors. So, yeah.
Wow.
The stock's current pullback, 7% down year to date, likely represents a buying opportunity for investors with a 3 to 5 year horizon.
Was it Airplane or something? The guy's like, tell me the story. Start at the beginning. He's okay. First, they were dinosaurs. It's like, okay, but
I don't know. I think, I don't know. It makes mistakes, but you know what? Humans make mistakes too, in greater proportion.
Oh, for sure.
I don't know in many cases, proportion, but it covers it well in language. It looks like an Accenture report.
And AI will only enable us to make those errors at scale.
Yeah, faster than ever before, ladies and gentlemen.
You thought we were inefficient, but now we're killing it.
All right, we only have half an hour left, so
I know. I don't want to.
I'm the one who's
time here, so I'm going to be quick.
It's a one-item Xbox line.
Oh, right. Well, there's nothing to say there. There's a game called Towerborn.
Yeah,
it's available in preview.
Is it a tower defense kind of a thing?
Leo, the name is all I know about this thing. It is
a side-scrolling brawler. According to,
of course,
not a tower.
That's why they called it Tower something. But the reason this is of note is it's actually an Xbox exclusive, meaning Xbox the platform, not the console. But it's only Xbox, PC, and Game Pass.
Oh, look, they're side-scrolling and they're brawling.
Well, there you go. This is old school.
It's kind of cool looking.
Yeah, it is actually. I kind of like that.
Yeah, it's like if you took Mortal Kombat and made it a side-scroller.
This is the thing I always said about Overwatch, which was at a time when it was hard for computers or consoles, whatever, to generate these 3D graphics and everyone's moving fast. It's like they made this cartoon looking game. Like, yeah, there you go. Like these are easy to draw, and the action could be fast and, whatever. But
the animation is more important than the fidelity.
And plus, I think it's kind of fun. Like it looks good.
Absolutely. Yeah. That's kind of the lesson of the last few years.
Well, this is the Switch. That's what the Switch taught us, right? Yeah. You guys are like trying to do 4K, 8K. What are you kidding me? Here's an idea.
Crisis mode?
Because of Uncanny Valley,
have a good game.
You don't want it to look more realistic because then it's creepier.
Yeah.
Let it be a little less realistic and it's more fun. All right. You are watching Windows Weekly, friends, and I am glad you have put up with this for this long. It's almost over. Your pain, your suffering, your malaise.
Have I apologized yet on this episode? I feel like I owe an apology somewhere.
No, we're so glad you're here. You're both winners and dozers. We do Windows Weekly every Wednesday, 11 a.m. Pacific, 2 p.m. Eastern, 1800 UTC. We stream live on 7 platforms. We're not on TikTok today for reasons. But if you're in the club,
hard
Discord,
computer science,
YouTube, Twitch, I'm chatting with people in both those, x.com, Facebook, LinkedIn, and Kick. And we're working on TikTok. So watch live if you want. But of course, we're also available on demand at twit.tv/WW, on YouTube, and wherever you get your podcasts. Paul, it's time for the famous back of the book and your tip of the week.
All right. I'm going to be brief here. Again, I want to give Richard the time he deserves. I don't remember if this came up. I think I did this last Friday, but I was trying to dual boot Ubuntu with Windows on a Surface Laptop 7 Snapdragon, right? Got into not a blue screen of death, but a blue screen, which meant that my recovery environment was corrupt or something.
Blue screen of sadness then?
Yeah. So that kind of put the brakes on the Ubuntu thing while I tried to figure this out. So on Friday or Saturday, I don't remember when, I just reset. I used the Surface recovery media I'd previously created and ensured worked to recover the system, reinstall all my apps. I was 80% or something done with installing my apps. So I thought to myself, I should probably make sure that recovery environment works. It did not. So I was like, well, maybe I could live with this. It's okay. But of course, I'm me, so I'm obsessing over this. And so Monday, maybe, or Tuesday, Monday, I think, I was like, all right, I'm going to kill this thing again. Yeah. And what I was going to do was use the Windows 11 on ARM ISO download, which doesn't have any of the drivers.
Yeah. I
was going to use Microsoft gives you the drivers for every Surface device. So that's a download, right? And I'm like, I will just, and that will, because I can go in and reformat I can pave the disk. I'll repartition the entire thing. It will have to recreate the recovery partition. This will work. I had to copy lots of stuff back and forth. And in the end, what I realized was, wait a minute. This Surface driver thing is actually called Surface Driver and Firmware. And it's an it's an MSI, but it's an executable. You run it. I was like, I don't know, maybe before I blow this away, I should just run this thing and see what happens. Mm-hmm. It fixed it. Yep. So I spent 4 days on this and untold hours, and I was getting ready to destroy it again. And I suddenly realized, wow, actually I can fix this without doing anything. So here's the moral of the story. It has nothing to do with anything I just said. The details of what happened to me are not important. What's important is I do things correctly on my computer that when this thing would not come back into Windows and would not boot properly, I did not have a single data file anywhere on that computer that wasn't backed up to the cloud. And that the way I do things is designed to prevent data loss. And it worked. So when this happened to me, because it happened without warning, I was not expecting not to be able to get back in the Windows. Everything was fine. I didn't have anything on my desktop. I didn't have anything in some random folder. Everything important, all the work I do in books, my work stuff for work, for the site or whatever it is cloud synced. So if I had to pave this thing, it would have wasted time, would have taken time. That stinks, but I could have done it. It would have been fine. And the important thing is I was never going to lose anything. And that's the best part of it. And I so rarely get to say anything like that because, usually the way you learn a lesson is someone punches you in the face and you're like, okay, maybe I shouldn't do that anymore. But
your nose is exactly where you left it.
Yeah. I've been punched enough times to know. So anyway, you can read the articles. It's a long story, but the outcome was short.
And are you going to forget dual booting now? I mean, is that it? It's over.
No, but so it's Wednesday and we're we're flying home on Saturday. And what I've done is I dual booted Ubuntu on just a normal x64 computer. And when I get home, I will have more computers. I don't want to screw around again with this computer.
Put it on x64. Yeah, don't try to do it.
I'm doing it on Snapdragon. But I'm going to wait till I get home. Okay. But I will do it.
Bravo. Bully for you, buddy.
I guess.
Sure, you could run it on an Intel, but why?
I mean, if I was a commoner, I would do that. No, I mean, it's fine. Okay. Firefox has a new update every 4 weeks. I think it's very quick. Like, I think the other browsers are 6 and they're 4, or is it 4 and 2? I don't remember, but
it's going to say 17 minutes, but okay.
Yeah, it's if you use Edge, you know.
It feels like Zen browser updates almost weekly now.
Yeah,
maybe even more than that. It's based on Firefox.
It's like they're training us just to get used to this. But at least
Zen
they
is
come
finally
back.
in 2.0, which is pretty exciting. Yeah.
2 things of interest in this one. If you're a Windows user, which you are, of course, they've adapted I don't know actually know what I've not seen this. It's like they call this UI pop-up windows, acrylic style menus for pop-up windows. Which is the Windows 11 look and feel. I've not seen it. I've been running Firefox. I don't see it. I don't know. But they're adding profile management. This one's rolling out like Microsoft rolls out stuff. So I actually haven't seen this one yet, but you've used profiles on other browsers. So if this was a sticking point for you, there were workarounds like, they had those containers and things like that. But profile management is actually kind of what you want. Different account, different bookmarks, different tabs, different browsing history, et cetera. School work, however you want to mix things up. So that's pretty good. That said, don't use Firefox. Use Brave, you idiot. Come on, wake up. You should be using Brave. Brave is great. So that's my epic.
Cool.
All right. Sorry, Richard.
Dude, we're fine. Relax. No biggie.
I'm sorry.
Ladies and gentlemen, you see that guy on the right? You see the guy in the lumberjack shirt? He is now going to tell you what's coming up on Run As Radio. Are you living in an apartment in Melbourne? Is this like your place?
This is a hotel room, but it's got like a washing machine and a kitchen.
That thing behind you looks like
it's really nice.
You got like
heat
equipment.
chamber or something. Like
you go in
equipment. Yeah.
I stayed in a hotel in Tasmania that had a bread maker, and the maid, when they came in and made your bed, would also restock the bread maker. So they set the timer for 7 a.m. and you'd have fresh bread when you woke up.
Oh, that's nice.
That's the coolest thing the only hotel that I've ever been in that did that, but I thought it was pretty cool.
Oh, and I've been in lots of hotels rooms with kitchens, but this one's actually equipped. Like it has a knife block that has knives in it. And
you could live there, man. You could move in.
I think it's kind of a long stay kind of place. I'm on the 36th floor here, so I'm way up there.
Nice.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was in Sydney for the Melbourne Cup. That's as close as I got.
Well, on Run As this week, I talked to Carolina Kitakari, and this is the 4th show I've done with her. So I've sort of been following her career for a while now, and she changed jobs. She'd been an independent consultant for a long time, but she's now joined a large firm in Finland. She's based in Finland. That's a financial group where her title is Head of Modern Work.
Oh.
So, modern work has been this theme we've been doing on Run As for the while, just from a system and perspective. Like, what are we talking about? It was mostly about remote work during the pandemic. But now it's come into this mixture of we're going to spend a certain amount of time in the office, a certain amount of time remote, and how do you unify all the work strategies around that? What do they do different when they're in the office? And so the conversation very much focused on how the contemporary tooling and network demands and security privileges are needed so that you have this symmetry between everyone working remotely from their homes and everybody together in sort of a bullpen setting or a meeting room setting, being able to collaborate. So, she's, so immersed in it now that literally has been hired to do it full time for a large financial organization. It's a great conversation.
Lovely. Now, you promised us at the beginning of the show a little bit of a different whiskey segment.
I had a whiskey experience this week, friends. Like it doesn't happen all that often, but it was sort of a friend of a friend moment that I was out for dinner and he said, I really need you to meet my friend Josh. And then Josh said, come meet me at Casa de Vinos, which is a store in Melbourne, which I highly recommend. that while it's called the House of Wine because they used to do custom bottlings of wine, the proprietor Jose has really switched to a focus on whiskey and rum and tequila and spirits.
This looks super cool.
It's a nice place and like a place you'd like to hang out at. It was
Yeah.
very, very enjoyable. And what's funny is I came in, met Josh for the first time. We chatted for a bit. We were talking to the lady behind the counter, and I'm like, well, I do this whiskey bit, so I'm looking for a whiskey for this week. And Jose literally came from upstairs down and said, what is this voice I'm hearing? This giant radio voice. And then why don't you come back upstairs with me? And we went into his private collection. And started digging. He's a proper collector of whiskey, which is to say it's all the different editions. So he had 30 or 40 years worth of different Lefroys. And then this was the bottling in Japan. This is the bottling from this thing. This is when the licensing rules didn't allow for 750 mils. So these are 700s. There was a limit of a maximum of a liter. So this was 3 editions, each 333 milliliters, like that kind of madness, essentially. And it's always a challenge when you have someone who's really interested in whiskey sort of looking at your collection. It's like, what can I give you you've never had or that there's a new experience? And Jose pulled one on me I've never experienced before. I literally had to research it afterwards. And it was actually bad whiskey.
Oh!
But bad whiskey from good distilleries.
Oh, okay.
So, and the ultimate example of this was it was a Scottish whiskey, a Glengarrick 21. And he says, try this. Gives me just a half an ounce pour, a little tiny pour, and Josh got one too. And I smell it, and it smells like dish soap.
And it wasn't this, maybe. Maybe it was the Whiskey Abbey.
Yeah, no, this is later in the story. But
okay.
When I taste it, it's literally like having my mouth washed out by lavender soap. It was unbelievable how bad it was. It was just shocking. And now I've gone on to read about this issue called saponification, which
it turned into soap.
It did. And the issue here is, and it exists in all forms of whiskey, is when you cut the whiskey with water before bottling. So it never happens with cast strength whiskeys.
Oh, interesting.
But there is an issue where if you dilute with water quickly and then immediately bottle, the way the phenols break down against the ionization of the water can end up making soapy compounds that will ruin the batch.
Wow.
Like as a whole. And so some of the pieces I've read have said that if you're reducing from you're coming out of the barrel at 55, 57%, you're going to go down to 43. It should take a month of adding water slowly and letting it establish and really arguably outgassing, like releasing certain compounds before you put it in bottles. But if you're in a hurry, and this was his argument, this was an old edition of 21, bottled in the 1990s, and they were in a rush, and they cut it hard, a lot of water, bottled it, and ruined the whole batch.
Did he know ahead of time that it was going to be saponified?
No.
Oh
no! And again, he bought it long ago. But it's this, and it's one of these areas that the whiskey professionals don't want to talk about. They've ruined whiskey because it doesn't happen immediately. It didn't taste soapy when they put it in the bottle.
Right.
It's actually over time in the bottle, and so there's 101 excuses about it was mishandled. It was your dirty glasses, like da 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 da. And now, bit by bit, the research come out that said this is kind of a big deal. And it doesn't happen anymore because I think they've now learned.
Yeah.
You add water very slowly. There's also an argument for what's the right amount of water anyway. Like, why are you going to 43? And sometimes it's a legal requirement. Like, I can't sell in this country if it's more than that. But most of the time, you're just trying to get to a nice drinking range and high enough that it doesn't flocculate, right, in ice because he didn't want a chill filter. And so you got to pick a number and take your time on it. Wow. Anyway, 100% of a digression. But while we were on there, I'm like, no, I'm here for Australian whiskey, which you've got an amazing collection of. And I'd done Hellier the week before for all of us here, and looked at a lot of different whiskeys, some really neat ones that I still want to get to, like Lark and so forth. A ton of really good Tasmanian whiskeys. But the one I selected was this one here, the Highwayman. And specifically their Whiskey Abbey 2024 edition. So Whiskey Abbey is an annual whiskey party, essentially celebration at an abbey outside of Melbourne. And they've invited me for the next one, in fact, which is in November. So I'm tempted to come down and do that. But this particular whiskey, the Highwayman, and my goodness, it's so dark. It is made by a guy named Dan Woolley. So Dan Woolley's a bit of a legend down in Australia as a guy who worked in the whiskey biz for years and years in lots of different roles. But his most famous role is as a brand ambassador for Suntory. And so Suntory owning all kinds of whiskeys all over the place, like Maker's Mark and Lefroy and a bunch of others. He retired in 2019, having built up this huge array of relationships to make his own expressions of whiskey. And in fact, since 2019, he's made 50. And this is one of them specifically made for the Whiskey Abbey event last year. So the way he has all these different ideas about whiskey because he's tried so many and been so heavily immersed that what he does is, pick a particular approach to the grain. He typically works with a particular distillery, the Lord Byron Distillery, which is in New South Wales, about an hour's drive south of Gold Coast, which mostly makes gins and rums, but they got all of the right equipment. And so he kind of comes there and he'll literally make a batch, a single barrel run, 200 bottles. They tend to be a bit pricey because they're small. This particular version is straight up barley from Australia, so very localized because it was for Whiskey Abbey. But then it's all about what did he do with the cask. And this particular time, he chose to go all sherry. So he did initial casking in a PX cask, in a Pedro Jimenez sherry cask, and then did it for a couple of years, and then did a finishing step, a final year in Oloroso. And then bottled it about 55%. There's only a 500 ml bottle. This is fairly common in Australia because it's pricey stuff.
It's a half liter.
Yeah, so a half liter instead of a 3/4 liter,
right?
For 250 Australian, so about 160 American.
If you could get it, but I see it's out of stock. So
is it out of stock already? It was when I was writing this up yesterday. They still had some.
Wow!
So it's just sold out.
Sold out. Yeah.
So just a huge sherry nose, like hello. And for what's probably only a 3-year-old whiskey,
look how dark,
right? That's all sherry in that.
Oh, I bet it's delicious, though.
Oh, man. And this is the magic of Dan Woolley. And I hope I someday meet this fellow because clearly he's very serious about what he's doing. For a young cask strength, like no flare, no burn on the nose, not at all. And when you tasted it, it's all that fruit and leather that comes from that sherry taste. And then just a lot of heat going down. Like it may be 7 a.m, but I'm all warm and fuzzy, what a fantastic whiskey. And this is what we've always wanted from whiskey. And what Dan's really perfecting is, hey, I'm going to get you to taste this thing and you're never, ever going to have it again. There's no
I love this guy, man. I got to go to Melbourne. That's awesome.
And in 5 years, 50 different whiskeys.
Wow.
And some peated, some not, all these different barrel options, but just making one-offs. And that's all he does. So, like I said,
he does master classes, it looks like. So you could go there and do a tasting session.
We have the new grandchild, and one of the conversations was, can we, while the baby's still highly portable, can we come to New Zealand and Australia and visit all the family and so forth? And they asked if I would come with, and now I'm like, well, we're talking about November. Gee, maybe when Whiskey Abbey is? So,
Oh, I want to go down with you for my birthday. That sounds awesome.
So much fun. And in some ways, I feel like these 500 mils is perfect.
Yeah.
Because it's a smaller bottle.
Yeah,
so it is just
fine.
Part of that.
It makes it precious. It makes it something special.
Yeah, and just a sort of one-time experience. So, and I'm not taking this home. I'm going to finish this with my friends at the NDC conference here today and tomorrow before I have to fly out.
Is that what you're doing in Melbourne? What's the MBC conference?
This is the tech conference that I do all over the world. They've got their main shows in Oslo. We've done a London one. We've done London and Copenhagen, Porto, Portugal, and this year.
Paul, how do we get on the Richard Campbell gravy train? That's what I want to know. Or should I say the whiskey train?
I think we just throw it like live podcast. something. I don't know.
Surely they want a live podcast there.
Pretty sure I've made that pitch to you a couple of times, Leo, but can't seem to pry you out of that studio.
We're stuck here.
Yeah, apparently.
Oh, I'm so jealous. Well, it sounds like you're there for a very good time, and I'm so glad you are.
We've been having a great time. My main talk is today, after later on up to doing this.
I hope you get a nap.
I'm doing that. I went to bed early. I'm doing my Future of Energy talk, but adapted to the state of Victoria. So I've reviewed all the government documentations on power generation here. And so I'm going to take the folks through. Here's how your state is currently making energy and what it's going to look like in the next 10 years.
See, that's great. Wouldn't you like to have Richard at your next event? Wow. Yeah. How cool is that? Richard Campbell, runisradio.com. You'll also find the .NET Rocks podcast he does with Carl Franklin there. And, of course, you find him right here every Wednesday. Thank you, Richard. I appreciate it. Getting up at 3 a.m. for this.
That's just wanted to shower before we get going, right? So
I don't blame you.
Got to get up early.
Paul Thurrott, he never showers, and that's the beauty of Paul Thurrott.
If I had a shower here in Mexico,
Thurrott is at Thurrott.com, THURROTT.com. His books, Windows Everywhere, Field Guide to Windows 11, are available at leanpub.com. You set your own price, and of course, he, along with Richard and I, will be here every Wednesday. I hope you will too. All you winners and dozers. A special thank you to our Club Twit members who make this possible at twit.tv/clubtwit. Paul, Richard, have a great week.
Sure.
Are you going to be in Melbourne next week or New Zealand?
I'll be on the farm, yeah. So you'll have that great view of Hobbiton. Yeah. We'll be back to that
Kiwi.
Sadly, unless everything goes horribly right, I'll be home in Pennsylvania next week.
You'll be in Macungie.
Pretty sure you're home right now, Paul. Like, let's be clear.
And a warning to the pilot, he does plan to install a dual boot Windows and
Ubuntu, but I like to do it
machine.
while we're in flight, just to maximum.
If there's a sudden power surge from seat 16B, you know why.
Sorry.
In-flight OS upgrades. That's the way to go.
Does anyone know the command line parameters for grep?
You remind me of the guy who was updating an Exchange server on his laptop without the power brick plugged in. It's like it was a race for how fast the battery was going down and how the update was going up. Oh, no, we were taking bets. It was
how fun is that? That's nerd fun.
Oh, boy.
Thank you, gentlemen. We will see you next week on Windows Weekly. I hope we see you all, too. Thank you. Take care.